Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 12th of August, 2018. I'm your host, Dan Train. Join me today, Zachary Burgess.
We actually have news this week.
And Robert Kemp.
I'm singing in the grey.
In the grave.
In the grave.
Singing in the grave.
In the grave.
That's horrible.
I'm singing in the grave. I'm just walking around the graveyard, just having a joyful swing around the stones.
Yeah, but to be in the grave, you'd have to be like.
I didn't say grave. I said grey because it's grey.
I see.
But not raining. And
you're not like one foot in the grave.
No, I'm definitely not that guy.
Okay.
I definitely can believe it. Man, that's some 90s TV reference. I wonder how many people actually still get that.
Oh,
Most
yeah.
people who are our
Most
age,
people
probably.
alive, you reckon? Okay.
Not most people alive. That's a bit much of them.
In the UK?
Pre-millennials, not your average millennial.
Pre-millennials, is that a word?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
God.
us. Yeah, apparently.
Pre-millennials.
Yeah. People who are old enough to remember like a time before the internet, but are still around in the millennial generation.
Yeah.
I mean,
and enough to realise that there's a weird middle ground millennial who's an absolute dick. Generally speaking.
it's like we were alive when there wasn't internet. I wouldn't necessarily say I remember much of that point at this point. I think I've forgotten pretty much everything earlier than like 6.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, but
when did we get the
we
internet?
didn't get it
Like,
until like 98, I don't think. I
Yeah.
don't think.
Probably earlier than that.
I think I had it a
For
little.
Dan, at least.
I might have had it a little earlier because I went in on, but I didn't have like pre-56k or whatever it was.
No, none of us had previous days.
No,
Was it 56 or 52?
No,
Oh,
56.
56.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
people had 28k. Loads of people. Not us, though.
No.
I mean, I had 28k later, technically, when I bought a Dreamcast, which had a 28k modem.
Yeah.
That's all that counts.
I definitely remember. I had a computer years before I had the internet.
Sure.
We all did.
Well,
Oh, yeah, I mean, we had the
Yeah.
166, the old Pentiums.
Yeah, I had the 120.
Yeah,
Yeah, with 16 megabytes of RAM.
and, you know, we had Amigas and Ataris.
well, that was
Well, yeah, I know.
more of the computer that we had rather than the other ones which were more like computers that were in our house at that point.
Yeah,
I definitely remember multimedia before the internet, where everything, everything was on CDs, like in Carter and shit.
No, yeah, I do remember, like, going into various school libraries and loading weird CDs mounted in cartridges for some reason.
Yep.
Into drives
yeah.
and being like, what is this? What's on this disc? Is this
kinda
interesting?
weird. I wonder why they had some had cartridges and some without, and then like obviously without one. But what was the advantage of the cartridge? I suppose.
The advantage of the cartridge is you didn't have children putting their fingers all over the goddamn disc.
Oh, I see. Was that the?
I think
So
that
it was
exactly
mainly
what
for
it
school
was.
libraries, was it? Okay.
Yeah, except they've gone to the effort of making like special drives that obviously
Yeah.
can accept the cartridge, and
Yeah, totally.
Well, you had to, because otherwise you'd be taking the disc out of the cartridge to put it into the drive, and that would
Yeah.
defeat the whole point.
But then they put those mini discs in cartridges, didn't they? For some, Ooh, that
It
must have
kind-
had advantage.
yeah, mini discs are basically the same thing. They're just a better form of it, and you couldn't take the disc out really. Like the cartridge was the plastic casing was the whole disc.
Was the disc? Yeah.
Yeah.
But why did they choose that? I suppose it's because it's portable. It
Protection
wouldn't
again,
rattle around
yeah.
as much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. And you can just stack them up, right? Like DAC tapes. I guess that's
Yeah.
the idea.
And they were just generally better manufactured at that point. By the time MIDI disc came around, those things weren't such a weird like. Oh, well, you weren't supposed to like because those cartridges were basically built a bit like crappy jewel cases, weren't they? Those
Yeah.
were quite flimsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were shitty.
And
I remember
mini
mini
discs
disc
are solid
being
old thing.
just cool. Like, I don't know.
Mini disc
even-
was cool.
Well, that was why
Even-
the GameCube was cool, because it had the small discs.
That's true. That was good.
And
they
you
weren't
know,
in
if
the
you
case.
No.
But mini disc was cool for a number of reasons because it was the first, especially when
Digital
mini disc
recording,
when the mini disc got a track and like files on it and stuff like that, and the volume of stuff you could store on one
Yeah.
got pretty high.
And,
Then
just the devices themselves were kind of just quality and
They looked
cool.
cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, I mean there were some. Obviously, I went to school with quite a few rich kids,
Yeah.
and there was a few of them that had mini disc players, and then they were the cool kids. With me, we sat with my admittedly, this was during the age where I started investing in Sony Walkmans, good Walkmans for tape players that were actually pretty cool themselves.
Man, I had an awesome Sony tape
but not
Walkman.
Minidisc. Yeah.
I had like the apex of the Sony tape Walkman where it was barely thicker than the actual cassette, to be honest.
So did I. I had one that was basically like a wedge where it was about as thick as the cassette except for like a lump at one end where a AA battery had to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Those ones that were like, they were just basically a sheet of metal and then they got bent. And it was like, that's kind of ruined that aesthetic.
Yeah. And
but it had
sort of like button layouts on the front that are like, where it was just cool that they were buttons and not like those chunky ass things that you have to like put effort into, and it's the effort that moves the mechanics.
Everyone wants mechanical buttons, though.
I mean, you don't get the satisfying click when you stop it, I suppose, once they got rid of those buttons.
You don't have to awkwardly try and press play and record at the same time to force it to actually record because that button combo was a weird thing even back then.
But then Walkmans didn't really have that.
No, not really.
And then,
had such weird technology in it. Like it had this. I think I remember it had the ability to sense the silences between tracks. So then you could skip tracks and it would wind through the track and then stop intelligently where the gap was. Cool. It's freaking ridiculous. So
I didn't
cool.
have that.
Yeah.
I just remember having to the problem with those buttons being like even on because I had a couple of variants of these things. I had like a big grey wodge thing that had like some nice satisfying concave buttons and then some like square button things. But the problem with both of those is that when you press the button, it's quite a significant delay before like the mechanics actually got in gear and we're like click 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 click. Now I'm in play mode. Let's go, and then it would like disengage everything to go into a fast forward, and it'd be like click 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 click.
And the other thing was like, how fast can it wind when you get to the end? And they were like, going into super speed mode because obviously the faster the better. That was so cool. Similar with like weird technology with our VHS player. At some point, we got like probably the pinnacle of tape players, where it had. Well, obviously, it had that thing where you punch in the code and it knows all the time stamps or whatever.
Oh, what was that called?
Video Plus or something.
Yeah.
But also, I swear, somehow, maybe using that little, I don't know how, maybe using that little black and white thing in the top corner, it's similar to that skipping track thing. It could tell where the adverts were and fast forward through them automatically, which is amazing.
Yeah, I wonder if you're right. I wonder if it saw the incoming ads indicator on certain shows because that only showed up, I think, on live shows, right? The incoming ads indicator, because on
is that right? Yeah,
something like that, because it was only needed for that for some reasons.
I remember we taped The Sopranos off Channel 4 at the time, which would have been around end of the 90s, right? Very end. And it could automatically fast through the adverts. And I don't know how it worked. The Sopranos, it's old. It's like the first amazing TV show. It's quite weird because the first you start watching season 1 and like the sort of some of the crimes they're doing is like stealing tons of DVD players or something that are like the latest thing that's so exciting to have. Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah.
Speaking of DVDs, it's time for my least favourite section of this podcast, but it's clearly
the film
required.
section.
Yep.
Why is this required this week?
Because I finally, after all this time, got round to watching episode 8.
Oh,
right.
Okay. So now we can talk about it.
And what did you think then, Zeg?
Possible spoilers.
I've watched it again recently, so
really? Okay.
For the second time. Yeah,
it's kind of butt.
Yeah, it's butt. it's butt. Kind of being operative, but it's I planned this section ahead, and I have 3 things that I want to bring up specifically.
Okay.
I'd say specifically.
There's a lot you could bring up,
quite
right?
General. Well, yeah. I can go into very specifics, but that would take too long.
Okay, do we have to put a little bit of a spoiler klaxon?
Well, I think for a film that's old, not really at this point.
I mean, it's nearly, a year and a half, nearly 2 years old now?
Yeah, pretty old.
It's not quite that old, but yeah.
So the
year and a bit.
Yeah.
Is it? No, it was last year, wasn't it?
Maybe
it was
not
Christmas.
Even a year. Oh, yeah, I guess.
So not even a year?
No. No, fuck, it's not even a year, is it? Shit.
No.
Spoiler alert.
Not that long. Yeah.
So the first thing is that, you'd think for real, real film writers, they'd realise that constantly referencing the old films gets old after about the second time, and then it just turns into eye roll central.
Yeah, I mean, they got away with it for episode 7.
Like, do it once per film. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
But no, when you get towards the end of that film and you've got a rebel in a trench who reaches over the edge of the trench and tastes the ground, and he's like, salt. And it's like, the only reason that's there is to be like, it's not snow because it's in the Hoff, even though it's exactly the fucking Hoff battle.
Exactly. That was exactly why. Oh my God. But that's not even the dumbest thing about that salt surface, because there's no reason for that. I mean, other than it looking cool, there's no reason for that like red underneath. And then they have to have ships that specifically have a pointless thing that sticks into the ground for no reason. Just to make a good visual, right? And they don't work as actual ships, and the attack is over in like 2 seconds because they're useless, and it's all just to make it look cool for the trailer, as far as I could tell. Which it did look cool.
I'm fine with things being stupidly designed to look cool. That's I'm all right with that. But but that's plenty of that in the original Star Wars films. But that scene is still stupid. Yeah, you're right, because they will just charge at it, and it's like, oh, this is done. This went bad.
Yeah. They didn't even have like the Hoff minor victory of like one of the speeders roping up the ATST's legs or anything. They didn't even manage that. They just all died.
They just all died. Yeah. I mean, they might as well have stayed inside. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
Anyway,
so then point number 2 of the 3 points of why particular things that I thought were dumb is
number 2.
Random unexplained things that just happen, and then and also just like sort of awkward, just skipping over things that happen where it's just like people just turn up, and it's like, oh, he came here and stuff like that. But the one that I found really annoying and dumb was just like, apparently we've suddenly developed cloaking devices that can be fitted into shitty transport ships that are totally non-militarized, and they're cloaking devices that can be defeated by an uncloaking scan, which you have to do specifically. Because why are you not just doing that all the time?
I think there is a bit of dialogue where they say uncloaking scan, don't they? Or something.
When the rebels are flying out of the carrier in the little transport, they're like, oh, the cloaking device is on, we'll be off their sensors, so we'll be fine to just fly away. And then later on, where the bad guy, the thief dude, reveals that they're there, and then the Empire dudes are like, we ran a decloaking scan and we found them. It's just like, what? Why would you not just be? Why is that a separate thing that you have to turn on?
It's really
why
stupid.
couldn't they like, because cloaking presumably doesn't hide like heat signatures or any of that stuff.
Apparently it does hide them pretty good. The fact is,
I mean, they specifically say in the original trilogy, no ship that small has a cloaking device. Maybe they've developed technology over the past.
I mean, it's moved on like 30 years or something, isn't it? So maybe.
But then also, it's now become incredibly cheap, apparently, because you can fit it in the shittiest, tiniest transport ships.
Yeah. Well, unless it's not that cheap. Unless that transport ship is like...
It was that whole fleet of the little tiny transport ships that come out of the carrier to play the Flash.
True. Well, unless they're...
And also, the other problem with that cloaking device thing is when they're in, like, fucking Snoke's chamber and he's, like, they do the thing that's basically from the other film where it's like, look at your rebel friends getting blown up.
It's exactly the same, as in Jedi.
It's a literal physical camera shot of the ships, which are, like, you can see them.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even that far away.
No.
You're telling me that you can't just look out the window, which you have in these spaceships for some reason.
None of this makes any I mean, every time I think about it, it's stupid. Like, the TIE fighters are near the start of the film are beating the shit out of that, and they blow up the bridge, right, of that ship. Yeah. But then there's a bit of dialogue where they say, like, are you getting too far away? We can't, like, cover you, so just come back. And it's like, why just throw more TIE fighters at them? Yeah, just
you've got plenty. Just keep going. You're winning this.
That would have made more sense if they'd gone for for how it used to work, where it's just like if the TIE fighters get out of range of the ship, they just like run out of fuel, essentially.
Yeah.
But isn't the whole thing about like the fighters can't actually do that much damage to capital ship shields?
Apparently they can now.
Yeah.
A single X-Wing can shoot every turret off a Dreadnought because apparently those aren't very well shielded.
Oh yeah, but that was the thing, is they could shoot things off of things.
But then how would the fucking shields work in Star Wars?
Yeah, so it was something to do with they couldn't do major damage to the lasers that they fire just aren't powerful enough to do major damage to the actual shields and hulls. hence why they just make sparks and don't really do any damage.
And I'm also
And there was something to do with distance. So I read somewhere once, my Quora is felt for some reason I'm subscribed to Quora and I never use it to actually answer questions or anything like that. But it seems to think I'm really interested in Star Trek and Star Wars questions.
Sure.
Right.
Which I probably am now because I keep reading the
separated.
bloody things when they come up in my email. But yeah,
on
they were
Stack
talking
Exchange,
about this.
it's like you've got Stack Overflow and you've got Sci-Fi Stack Exchange, which is like a different sub-site or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're actually separated. Whereas I think Quora is just like, you got
This
a
is a
question?
question.
Yeah.
So but I'm sure there was some article, there's something there where someone had sort of tried to research how the lasers worked, and there's something somewhere about the distance of shot is important, and that being further away might actually be better for dealing with shields. And
it's probably some ionization thing, because those lasers are clearly not actually lasers. They're probably more like plasma, I guess.
Yeah.
But then,
or maybe it's less good, but then the ties just aren't all that powerful to begin with. Hence why broadsides still work.
Well, that whole bit at the start where they have the bombing run, we've got to have literal bombers dropping bombs.
Yeah.
Because I guess that was the one bit where it was this actually makes sense because they're in the gravity well of a planet and they're using repulsors to stay in one place because they're not actually orbiting. And it's holy shit, gravity actually, that's not how that would work, I guess. But then that's slightly ruined by the moment shortly beforehand where the rebels are evacuating the base, hear the Star Destroyers warping in from hyperspace and look up to the sky. How do they hear that?
Yeah, but Star Wars has always had sound in space.
Sound in space, that's fine. That's just a film thing. But sound from space to a planet is a bit more kind of
right. Yeah.
But then maybe the disruption of some field we don't understand could have rippled the atmosphere a little bit. I don't know.
And then point number 3 of things that I wanted to bring up that were annoying was really a thing that I'd seen well before I actually saw the film, and had a minor spoiler over. But the classic, and I watched a YouTube video about it, and I entirely agree with this YouTube video. But you can't use light speed as a weapon because then that would be the ultimate weapon in the Star Wars universe, and everyone would do it all the time.
That's the classic one. The big dumb, because it's it is. There's no denying it's a really cool shot, and the way
amazing.
It goes quiet, and it looks awesome. But it also
absolutely
destroys
the best thing about the film.
It destroys the universe at the same time. It is the best looking shot of the film.
Also, once the giant ship gets cut in half by the light speed attack, they don't really seem to care that much. They're just all still wandering around, trying to catch. There's no alarms even, really.
No.
Wait, what? Oh, what, on that ship?
Yeah, on that ship, they're just oh shit, well, I guess we probably need to abandon the ship eventually.
Well, I mean, there is the whole bit with Finn and stuff are in a big hangar thing that gets ripped apart, right? And that's
that sort of. I guess that's maybe what that was nearer to the explosion or whatever. But when they're in Snoke's chambers, there's that doesn't even. I mean, most of the damage there was done by the lightsaber fight, not the actual ship getting blown up.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
Several dumb things.
I think that's some interesting. I think that's some Zach grade criticisms on the mechanics of the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're not bothered about the actual terrible melodrama?
Well, I forgot the one last thing.
Characterizations or any of that nonsense?
Or some of them are dumb.
Bullshit with Poe.
Well, I forgot the one last thing that was really, where I was just why? What was the point of Luke Skywalker projecting a Force ghost to fight Kylo Ren and then just dying anyway?
I mean, I don't think he had much control.
Why did he not just...
I think that just sort of happens, right? That's just...
Why did what?
I guess the assumption is the Force just took him for some reason.
Why did he not just go there and completely rip off Obi-Wan and just die?
Yeah, why don't you just die and just be a ghost for reals?
It seems very unnecessary to go through the whole effort of remotely projecting yourself to fight him.
But then it's always
well, he couldn't have won if he was there, physically, right?
He could have.
The idea.
I think.
Not? Hasn't it been sort of implied that being a Force ghost is something you have to learn whilst you're a ghost? Yeah.
But he does say, do you think I'm going to take on the whole First Order? He can't do that. He's not that powerful.
But he might have totally been able to survive the ATST bombardment, because that's not unreasonable a level of power.
But he only survives based on not being physically there, right? I mean, there's no kind of...
Yeah, but in that version, but there could have been a version where he totally could have just stood there and avoided it all.
But I don't think you've seen that from the Jedi, being able to, completely shield themselves, like that.
They always deflect something.
He totally could have.
Other than that one time where he holds a blaster bolt in midair.
Yeah, exactly.
Where Kylo does that.
Kylo does that. Yeah.
He totally could. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't deflect an AT-ST blast with a lightsaber. Why not? It still does a laser of some kind.
Yeah, I guess you could, but there was a lot of them.
There was a lot.
Sure. Or, just force run out of the way for a second.
And we recently watched episode 3 and we saw how easy it is to kill a Jedi.
I mean,
in certain situations.
I don't think that projection thing was that bad, apart from the way it was shot was a bit like too smirky badass, which was a bit weird. But if you pay any attention at all, you immediately notice, the moment you see him, he's got the blue lightsaber that you just saw got torn in half. So it's there's no is he or isn't he a ghost? Instantly, right? If you're paying attention.
That's quite a bit to pay attention to, though.
And he might have just assumed it was another lightsaber that he had.
Yeah, he might have more. I mean, he could have had $1 billion after the Jedis were no more. He could have gone and just got them all.
When he was in the main Jedi place, right? He could have easily built another one because probably that's where they would.
What, you reckon they might have had the crystals?
Also, did the Jedi text get stashed in the Millennium Falcon? Did I see that right?
No, they got burned, right?
No, they open a drawer at the end of the film and there's the books there when they're rummaging around.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, was that... you only see it for a second. I was like, was that the text?
Well, that completely undercuts Yoda's whole thing.
Yeah, did that completely undercut the whole Yoda burning the tree segment?
Yeah.
That would be stupid. I also thought it was quite stupid how, for the fans, they put the stupid extended universe Jedi Order symbol on the texts, on the books. Anyway, that doesn't really matter, but I just...
No, it doesn't. That's a nice nod.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Anyway.
Even if the extended universe isn't technically canon anymore, is that right? So,
yeah, it's all gone. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure symbols like that could probably easily just be transferred over to the new extended universe.
They've transferred whole characters over, like in the TV show. They've got Grand Admiral Thrawn, who was a central character in all the extended universe.
Oh, what you mean?
He's going to be less important now.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, in the cartoon, they cancelled Clone Wars and they made Rebels, which was for younger kids. But apparently they've uncancelled Clone Wars for so they can be finished. I think mainly because of prequel memes. But there you go.
Wait, because there's 2 Clone Wars, isn't there? There's the good one and there's the bad 3D animation one.
That's true, but the good old one, the 2D one, is completely non-canon, unfortunately. And then the 3D animation one, there's a lot more of, and that is canon. And that's the one they're uncancelling. Yeah, I mean that's ages ago. That 2D one, the Samurai Jack one.
I know, it's so good.
That was awesome, but I mean, it's not as awesome as it was at the time, obviously, especially because the first series of that, they're basically 5-minute chunks and there's no plot in any of it, so it's just badassery with no plot. Whereas
just nice little short stories always, which is cool.
I was saying to my brother the other day, there's a brilliant bit in because the second season of that cartoon one, 2D one, leads up to the start of episode 3. And some of it, I think, is they know how bad everything is in the prequels, and they're kind of taking the mick a bit. And that my favorite bit is right before episode 3, right? The separatists or whatever attack Coruscant, right? Because that's how the film starts, with the battle above Coruscant. Yeah. And there's a bit where, so this is already in progress by the time the film starts, but in the cartoon, it leads up to that. And there's a bit, and you know how it's the Dark Lord of the Sith has clouded our ability to use the Force. So we can't really tell what's going on like we normally would. And there's a bit where Yoda is sitting meditating in his chambers and on Coruscant. And then he suddenly opens his eyes and, using the Force, opens the shutters. And there's just millions of enemy troops just flying down into the city. He's I noticed it. He's concentrating really hard. I must sense something. And he senses absolutely zero.
Well, he senses that they're right in front of him.
Yeah, by the time he can see them, he senses them. It's just so dumb. Anyway, yeah. That first bit with the bombers, it's a standard... it's a good Star Wars idea, because what Star Wars always used to do is just take stuff from classic movies and World War II movies and just make them in space. So like the original film was basically, the end was basically the Dam Busters, but in space, right? And then they did that multiple times. And then even in the prequels, like the pod race is just the Ben-Hur chariot race, but in space, complete with yeah. And the idea of this was obviously this was like the American bombers over Europe, right? Where, you know, the B-17s with all of the where they're slow and all the enemy fighters come and they've got the gun turrets and stuff. And that would have been, and the idea is do that, but in space. And that was a good idea, but they didn't quite give it the, you know, they were trying.
They over-egged bits of it, you know, like in classic Star Wars fashion. It's like, I don't dislike the idea of that segment at all, but it's just the whole, you know, how long the whole, I need to get the remote for this bomb released, or how long that goes on for is excessive.
I agree. Yeah.
It's just like, seriously, can you not just have a little more urgency, lady? Just go for it right now.
And it's supposed to be to set up Rose as a character, right? Because it's her sister or something.
You've got to randomly create more characters as well, of course.
Yeah, of course.
As you do.
Surprise Jar Jar reveal. That's what's happening in episode 9.
So, do you think
the Sith Lord of legend is revealed?
Do you think Abrams can bring it back for episode 9, or do you think it's just not worth bothering with anymore? Because I think...
I mean, anything's always possible, right? I think you can curtail it well, because I don't think the story really is anywhere. That's sort of the problem with it. It's like there is nothing really to particularly wrap up. You could do what you wanted.
But the way it's going to be like fucking Starkiller 2.
Yeah. Which would be really disappointing. But or would it actually just be, okay, this is good again? I don't know.
I mean, we're assuming that they're not going to be completely stupid and actually wrap this up in a trilogy and not just leave it completely continuous.
Oh, what, just keep going?
Yeah.
What, MCU it, you mean?
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Well, they want to MCU the whole
fights,
thing.
But not ends.
But I don't think they want to do it like... They do want this to be a trilogy, but they're just going to do another trilogy, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, even if they keep going, that's fine, but they do have to contain some storylines.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the MCU is fantastic at, right? Yes, they keep going, but most of the films have a self-contained beginning and end.
But, like, is it going to be like, you've already had the end of the Empire, and now we're going to have the end of the First Order, and then some other new evil empire is going to evolve from that.
Well, let's not worry about that.
A new one after every time.
Yeah, because I didn't think the First Order was that great, so it was just a facsimile of the Empire anyway. And I don't want them to do what the old extended universe did, which is introduce like an intergalactic alien race. Yeah, and it's like that doesn't fit in Star Wars. That's not good. That doesn't work. You can't make like the Borg in Star Wars. It won't work.
Some of that stuff in the extended universe was partially a good idea. Well, I mean, the only thing that made that slightly interesting was the idea that like the aliens from outside the galaxy weren't in the Force in any way because they didn't have midichlorians because they weren't from that galaxy. So that led to the Jedi having problems. It's like, that's slightly interesting as a concept.
But I don't know. I think it undermines the Force because the Force, just like midichlorians does in the first place, because the whole point of the Force is it's all living things, right?
Yeah, that's but maybe it's only all living things in that galaxy. Maybe they're so different that you can't see them in the Force.
Maybe
it was just an assumption that it was all living things because they were only considering within the bounds of one galaxy.
Maybe.
I don't actually know the extent of the universe lore of what actually is the reason that those aliens were visible in the Force.
No. Yeah. I don't care about that idea. Anyway, we'll see. But maybe they can make one more good film out of it, potentially. I still think Kylo Ren's a good character, and I
don't know. I think he was less good this time around. Like I didn't buy into the whole, like, as I said, like the him and her talking over things. Like I wasn't sucked into that so much. It's like, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan. I've watched Logan Lucky recently, and it's like, which is another Adam Driver gig.
Oh yeah,
and it's like I'm more and more sold on him as a real talent. But it's just Yeah, I don't know. He felt different in this film, as did Donald Gleason. Was a General, what's his face?
Hux, yeah.
Hux, that's it. Yeah, like he felt different this time, and like not necessarily in a bad way. I quite liked Hux this time because he was probably some of the best comedy, weirdly,
probably.
in this one. But that's not his character as it was in the first film, and it's like it's just sometimes those changes felt a little like really off.
Well, I mean,
really
that
weird.
is what they tried. What they seemed to try to do in this film was just random amounts of comedy.
I don't mind that.
Well, that's the bloody Marvel thing. That's it. Worked for Marvel, so they're trying to do that formula with Star Wars, and that's not. And it's not as if like
I don't mind that.
It doesn't have humor in it. It's got plenty. It's just a different kind. It doesn't.
Yeah, I
don't
mind it in the Star Wars universe. I don't even mind the tone they were going for. It just felt haphazardly placed. If you know what I mean, like.
The humor worked a lot better in The Force Awakens, I think.
Yeah, or a little bit of an over-reliance on the little squawky thing. You know, that because once that got introduced, it was there they cut to it quite a bit, and it's like just going. Bah!
Oh, the porgs.
That overdone.
Yeah, I thought that was okay.
About the whole Ewok situation, and it wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't like that. The porgs were fine. No problem with the porgs.
They were mostly fine. I didn't think, I felt like perhaps cut to that a little. Like, we need a shot of Chewbacca, and of course the porg's right there, so you might as well have it go, brr, ah! Why not?
I mean, I've said this before, but the worst thing about, at the end there, you've had that, battle on the salt flats or whatever, and then the Millennium Falcon turns up and draws off all the TIE fighters, which is a good idea. I mean, it's like Yahoo! It's like a callback to the bloody first film. Again,
like one of those
it's exactly like that. And then it's a good line where he's like, "Oh man, they hate that ship," and that was quite good. But then it has a whole chase with the TIE fighters through these caves, which
is also exactly like the Death Star 2 trench run.
Yeah.
And also a little bit like that sequence from Force Awakens, in fairness.
Yeah, and like the sequels from Force Awakens. But what really tips it over the edge for me is they just reuse the music from the original TIE Fighter Millennium Falcon fight in the first film, in episode 4. And it's like, the moment that awesome music starts, I'm like, man, I wish I was watching Star Wars. Which is not good.
No, they have. Did you see Solo as well? Or?
No. I
specifically
haven't seen it. It's probably quite good. I specifically haven't seen it.
I know people that have seen it and they've come back and said, yeah, it's not as bad as it. Like, you know, the worry was greater than the reality.
Yeah, I'm sure. I probably would have enjoyed it more than Last Jedi because I would have much lower expectations. I think I would have had more fun watching that.
Yeah, probably. Well, you know, it's going to be like basically a throwaway film, like, right? You know,
exactly.
Don't have to be too invested in it. It's just,
yeah. It's interesting that it didn't do well. I think it's literally because they put it out too soon. Because I think it is probably more interesting than Rogue One. So I don't know.
It was definitely weird timing for it. I think so why didn't they target the just hang on to it for a while and target the same window like they have been?
No. It's weird. It's not like there's a big Marvel film for Christmas, is it?
No, I think Marvel's going to be quiet for a while. Actually,
yeah, exactly.
Like, there's not. I don't think there's a great deal for quite some time because I just watched
Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? That just came out, right? And then it's Captain Marvel. When's that? Is that not till next year?
I don't think that's this year. I think there is quite a gap until then.
How was Ant-Man?
Ant-Man's good. It's good. Yeah. Like, you know, I think I'm more of a fan of the first one than you are.
Yeah, I didn't really like it.
But it keeps that tone, and so if you're,
that's fine.
Yeah, if you weren't into it, then it's basically just more. But
I just thought it was a bit safe, the first one, because I was hoping it would be a bit more out there, given it was originally Edgar Wright and stuff.
Yeah, I think you might have. I think the same criticism can be thrown at this one. In that it's. I mean, I don't think they explore too many new ideas, and it even takes the mick out of itself in a couple of places where they're clearly inventing new quantum mischief for that they can do, and like what's that's all about and stuff like that, and to the point where they literally just there's a line in the film, it's like, do you guys just say quantum in front of things and it makes it better? And it's
right,
just,
okay, lamp shading.
Yeah. So they sort of knows that it's nuts and dumb, but I appreciate the sort of smaller scale of it. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like they've done the small scale thing. They haven't done this as a universe-ending storyline. This is this is a little conflict, fairly small personal conflict, really.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
It's
after the Infinity War,
yeah, exactly. It fits that role exactly, and it's nice.
Because they're deliberately doing it so that everything is set, sort of nothing is set after Infinity War that's coming out before Infinity War.
No, this all takes place fairly close to the run up to Infinity War.
Yeah. I think Captain Marvel set in the 90s, I think.
I mean, that makes sense. Because they can't do it. They can't. Well, yeah, it would be weird if they tried to do something after that.
Yeah, they can't really. Yeah.
And also, they've got some explaining to do, as in, why the hell has she not been involved up to this point?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is always the problem, I guess, if they want to introduce new people that are supposedly on Earth at this point. Like, what happens if they actually start trying to fold in X-Men at this point? Do they start again with it and just say, hey, the mutants are a new thing?
I don't know.
Because don't they have that now? I assume they have that now that they own... Disney own Fox, or that part of Fox?
I don't fully know what they're doing. I think they will bring it in, right? I think they do own it. So I
think it'll be a misstep not to.
But they've got their Inhumans, right, for the time being, which are their like.
Sure,
mutants.
but I don't think that particular storyline or that particular TV show at least went down too well. And it was going to be a film, but they scuppered that and turned it into a show.
Yeah.
Because it tied in more of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff than it did the films. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pretty much has nothing to do with the extended MCU at the moment anyway. They occasionally reference it and say something, hey, have you seen what's going on in New York? Mad, right? and that's it. They're done. Moving on.
So, yeah. The Happy Salad review of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, kind of butt.
Yep.
Kind of butt. Zach's way with words.
I would agree.
Kind of butt. We sort of casually threw that in the middle of that discussion, but Zach and I did end up watching most of episode 3 for some reason.
Yeah, because it was on.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's worse than I remember.
Yeah, it's bad. It's because it was the least bad, but was it? Yeah, I think it was probably the least bad. Although you could argue the Phantom Menace might be the least bad. It's quite...
It's weird to say that now. Yeah. Looking back, it might actually be the best sort of structured individual film of the lot.
because it's like a standalone thing. And yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
If you take it as a more of a younger audience kids film.
Exactly. And
then actually, is it that bad at it? No, maybe not, actually. I mean, I always had a bit of a fondness for Attack of the Clones, the second one, but only if you ignore anything to do with Anakin and Padme. If you take all of that out, then I kind of enjoyed it. But
actually, yeah, the kind of Obi-Wan detective thing where he sort of even though it's unbelievably stupid, like he's in the fucking Jedi library and he's like, I'm looking for this thing and I can't find it, and she's like, well, if we don't have it, it doesn't exist. It's like, oh, brills. He's like, and then he goes and he visits his old CGI friend, the fat diner guy, who was like it was the stupidest character. Why there's like a American 1950s themed diner in Coruscant, I don't know. And then he goes to the Camino planet. Anyway, that whole thing, and he meets not Boba Fett. I mean, it's stupid.
He also meets Boba Fett.
Yeah, he meets actual Boba Fett, and Boba Fett has that immortal line. Yep. Yeah. I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe. Oh, but it's mostly good because of like stupid stuff, like the sound design of the charges in the asteroid belt.
The one thing.
Oh, I love that.
Everyone loves that. And like that's stuff like that.
It's such a good sound effect. I mean, it's a fairly cheap sound effect in a way because it's basically just like a good reverb more than anything. But yeah, I love that. It's the fact that they're like weirdly 2D shockwaves as well that come out of those charges.
Yeah.
That then just cut through the ash. Oh, it's cool. It's a cool sequence.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I found it. It's a weird. It was a weird, frustrating watch seeing it again because a bit of me was going, "Hey, you know what? Ewan McGregor's pretty good at this. Like, he fits.
Of course,
I think
he's good.
I think he fits the sort of that weird Jedi. I don't know, mindset that the presence that Jedi have pretty well.
I mean, he was good casting as Obi-Wan. There's no denying that. It's just he had shit dialogue and
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's like they
odd circumstances and just like it's just strange. It's just strange.
It's like they say this in the Red Letter Media review of the Phantom Menace, but it's like Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan should have been formed into one character, right? Just you don't need these two, where Obi-Wan's the trainee and Qui-Gon's the wise Jedi. You just need the wise Jedi, and so you just need the one character called Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Why they had to add an extra weirdly a Neeson guy?
Because he's not even really nothing. There's no consequence to him getting mauled.
No,
either, really, is there?
Not really.
It just sort of happens. Other than for them to say at the end of episode 3, "Hey, Qui-Gon's mastered being a Force ghost."
Yeah, you could talk to him now.
Well, it was really just a convenience because of that first film being so far back in time that Obi-Wan couldn't have already been a Jedi Master, so they had to have his Master exist.
Yeah,
it was I guess
maybe they were trying to make it fit in. What you mean? They were trying to make it fit in canon?
Yeah, because of just time periods. Where it's if you're going to have a Jedi Master system where you have to go through training and all this shit, then if we've gone that far back in time, we kind of need Obi-Wan can't just be a Jedi Master in this film. We just need him to still be not a Master.
He could have just been a knight. He didn't need to be a master. And he says in Empire, you will learn from Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me, as if he was Yoda's pupil, which you never see.
I guess, but that's just it's just that's just because they didn't know that there was going to be all these other Jedis at that point.
No, I know. Past. No, but I mean, when you're writing the past, I don't know. Anyway,
but he was still the Jedi Master who taught him stuff. That line still makes sense.
Sort of.
I also think I might take the controversial position of I think I kind of like CG Yoda more than I like Puppet Yoda.
What? You mean Puppet Yoda from the original trilogy? Or Puppet
Yoda from the new trilogy, in fairness, because it's kind of the same, my mouth just moves forwards and backwards, not really opening, kind of hand motion.
I mean, I don't know. For me, you can't beat the original Yoda from Empire. Even now, I don't think if you redid that with CGI, it would be better.
I don't know. I just thought it was done pretty well actually in the prequels. The actual CG work is good.
It's still just weird how 15 years in exile makes him go completely weird.
A little bit, yeah. 15 years.
He's not weird if that's his actual.
He's 900 years old,
character. Yeah, but I mean, how old? Anyway,
15 years isn't that long.
Is it only 15 years? Really?
Approximately.
What? So Luke's 15?
Well, no, probably more like 20, I guess, but not that much.
He's 19, isn't he? So that's yeah.
Oh, is he? Oh, I didn't realise he was that young.
Oh no, hold on. He might be younger. I think he's 19. He might be 17. I think he's not. He's definitely not 20.
Huh. I didn't realise he was that young.
Well, because he's wanting to.
That explains a little more of his. That explains a little more of his mentality that I hate.
His whiteness.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's just a kid. That's why everyone calls him a kid all the time. Well, especially Han, obviously.
I think Han probably calls a lot of people kids.
And he calls him boy, doesn't he? He's
boy.
Traveling through hyperspace ain't like Dustin Croft's boy.
True. But it could just be that's just how they talk.
It could just be a farm boy reference rather
than
an age reference.
Or that he's just younger.
Even though
younger
there was no crops to dust on Tatooine, so how would he even understand that reference?
Yeah.
Why would I dust? Do crops get dirty?
Why do I need to put more sand on this sand?
No, he'd surely be like dusting, as in like cleaning it up.
I tried to clean the sand off his hand.
Star Wars is stupid, but has cool stuff. General rule.
Right. Well, that's the film section.
Yeah, that is the film.
Maybe that should be my new character suggestion for episode 9. General rule. Just...
Well, now you're stepping on the news section.
Huh?
How so?
What we're about to get onto, I guess.
News.
All right, where do we want to start? Zach, pick a topic.
I only know of one, because as I said, that one bit of news completely erased any other news that I thought I could have remembered. I'm kind of vaguely aware that I thought there was news, but then that one other bit of news completely erased any other news I had.
All right, should we get the journalist story out of the way first? Because it's your typical bad news and gamer people being stupid gamer people news of the week, but it's like it seems to be like top of Kotaku right now, so whatever. But,
what's that then?
These news stories suck.
I know it is kind of. We don't have to linger on it, but basically, there's a reporter, an IGN reviewer.
Oh God, that's never a good start.
I know, but he's basically been like caught as plagiarizing the Dead Cells his Dead Cells review, having nicked it off a YouTuber. Basically, it's kind of like follows the exact same structure, just mildly paraphrased would be the way to describe it. So it's like, yeah, this is probably plagiarized, and he was like, that wasn't. So he came back and IGN fired him basically for doing that, and then he was like, oh, this wasn't my intention. I'm sorry to IGN, and I'm sorry people didn't apologize to the YouTuber, but he was like, yeah, I'm sorry this came out like this, and specifically like threw a bit of shade at the news outlets that had reported on this and things like that, to which they've gone away and done some more research and found some more cases of him doing this.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not the first time. It's not his first plagiarism rodeo. It's very clear to me, at least, and to the community at large, that he's done this several times.
Right, fair.
And it's like, yeah, fair. And typically that's where the story should end. Except it sort of doesn't, because classically, the internet have been the internet and have started threatening his family and things like that. And it's like, okay, this guy's an asshole, but he doesn't deserve that stuff.
I don't think we ever need to talk about that kind of thing ever
again. I know what you
like,
mean, but it's
you just add that onto literally any story on the internet.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere will be threatening someone's death. It doesn't matter what you're talking about.
In fairness, that's kind of the true of the real news. If that were true of the real news, we could just basically just sort of stop having the news. It's kind of that most nights. Hey, Trump's being an idiot. All right, not news. Carry on.
Standard procedure.
Yeah.
Space Force all the way, though. Did you see that? That was a tweet from the President of the United States. He said Space Force all the way.
Space Force.
All the way to space.
Yeah, all the way to space.
Well, no, I guess they'd already have to be there if they were Space Force. Unless... Well, do you need like a rocket force to go from the Earth to space? Or is
the
that
Russians have a rocket force,
Space
right?
Force?
Don't they? Strategic rocket forces, I think. The Russians have.
Is that what they name their like their giant missiles, like part of the rocket force or something?
Yeah, it's called the rocket force. Strategic rocket force, I believe.
Fine. I can dig that.
I just think that's a cool name. It's not called like, I don't know what the American equivalent would be.
Missile Command, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Missile Command.
Anyway, that was that news. Let's move on. It's done.
Yes, strategic rocket forces. Oh no, strategic missile troops or strategic rocket forces. Okay, it's one
missile
of the
troops. Sounds fun, nonetheless.
Yeah, it sounds awesome either way. Yeah, Rocketeer.
Yeah,
fuel tanks are field.
They're very much not missiles.
No, that's true. They use things.
Quakecon. Let's talk about Quakecon. That happened. Bethesda had some things to say.
Kind of.
We saw some gameplay from Doom Eternal. Looks like Doom, but with slightly more.
Doom, but Doomer.
Doom, but Doomier.
I mean, that's what Doom 2 was. So, and this was what this is.
Maybe mildly more colourful. I don't know. Slightly less brown.
Yeah, it
Maybe.
looks like it has the interface of the hell aesthetic with the Earth aesthetic a little bit.
Yeah. Yep, looks like there'll be more of that, which I'm all for. But the weird thing they've said they've sort of added is it's got like Dark Souls style invasion mechanics.
Oh, right.
Sort of.
So you can go into other people's games and help them and stuff.
More the opposite. You can become demons and be an active force against the players in their game.
Oh. Okay.
People have tried dumb things like be the enemies before in various games.
I mean, everyone's referencing Left 4 Dead at the moment.
Yeah, but that was more like an actual
multiplayer
thing. Less of a, because I mean, people have tried to do this before, and now in the modern age, I'm sure people are thinking about Twitch streams where like, we can make this perfect for Twitch streams by getting the Twitch streamers to have their community be the enemies, and it will be a community thing. It's like, I don't think it's ever actually worked though. The times when people have tried to do that, I mean, what was that? I think it's actually quite an old idea. Like, was it like PsyOps or something that did that in one of their games? Where they had it so you could have other players be the enemies.
Oh, I mean, Perfect Dark had it, technically, if you want to talk that, but they had, like, counter-operative mode.
Oh, yeah. That was weird. It's not a new idea, but with the internet and streaming, I'm sure they think it's a better idea now.
Yeah, I can see the appeal. I can see why that's probably why it's there. Because, like, to me, just really that, like, what's the benefit to the player for having that turned on?
You just get really hard enemies.
Yeah. And, like, unless the rewards for completing an invasion are pretty good.
Yeah.
But then what's the reward? Like, presumably you die, which is a pain in the arse otherwise. Especially given that trailer looked like there was some sort of life system.
That may not have been an actual thing, though. That may just have been a comedy reference.
Or maybe an arcade mode or something.
It was a bit mysterious. Because it didn't look like he had like a bunch of lives in the corner until he picked one up, and then it was like lives 1, or not lives, but like a little logo of a dude helmet.
Yeah, a bit weird. But anyway, I'm all up for more Doom. Sounded like they've gone for the. I don't know if I'm disappointed or happy that the soundtrack sounded pretty much on point with the original. It was clearly a track that wasn't in the first game, but still a little bit like maybe it's a little too samey. Maybe I want something like the original, but with a new twist on it, and maybe some of that's to come. But we just haven't seen it in that particular demo.
Who did the soundtrack for
Mick Gordon?
Okay,
legend of now a legend of game music design. Doom Eternal. And they dropped a whole, some bullet points, I suppose, on how Fallout 76 might actually work. Regarding some of how the world works and some of how your time in the world will be. There will be VATs, apparently. Just some form of real-time VATs.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to slow down, I guess, but...
your character can get mutated if you spend too much time in irradiated areas. You might get a random sort of like change to your stats.
That's like any other stat-based system.
Kinda, I suppose. They like the one example that I noted, or I've seen, more to the point, is that you could get, the mutations have names. And you could get one called Bird Bomb that made you jump higher, and but made your strength less, something like that. So they're modifying like movement stats as well as just like abilities, I guess. But that's the thing. PvP, I guess some of the bigger ones, to answer some of our concerns, I suppose, with this, is that PvP is an opt-in experience.
Well, they kind of already say that, but not like specifically.
They didn't really detail that. They sort of said that PvP wouldn't be an issue, and that they said that you could play it single player in theory. So that kind of inferred that you could opt out of all the multiplayer as well as the PvP, I guess. Yeah, but it's like apparently they've sort of done the a little bit like the dueling in Borderlands, in that if one player shoots another player. Like, it will do a tiny bit of damage, but not epic amount of damage. And and the other player has to shoot back effectively to be like, yeah, I want this fight, and it goes into a dueling stance. It will normalize the levels between the players to some degree. It sounds like if someone is still higher level than the other player, they will still have, or better equipped than the other player, they will still have an advantage, but just not as much as it would be against single player enemies with the same stats. Like, it compresses the level range a bit, so I guess skilled players could still beat higher level players, higher stat level players, which is interesting. It is possible to kill people, though, even if the other player doesn't opt into the fight. However, the murderer, as they're being called, won't gain anything from that, which is a little bit confusing. It's like, why do it? Like, they won't gain any...
Because of trolling! The number one reason for randomly killing people.
So when you do that, you get marked on a murderers list, and there are incentives for the other players to track down murderers. Even if the murderer himself doesn't gain anything from actually committing murder. It's interesting. So they're sort of encouraging this. As I say, they're encouraging this, like, any PvP fights have to be consensual thing. But dying doesn't sound all that bad anyway. You don't lose any money, you don't lose your equipment, you only lose any junk you're carrying around, quote-unquote junk, that is for base crafting, effectively. And there'll be musical instruments.
I mean, the real question is, like, they still haven't gone into enough specifics about the bases, really. Because, like, losing the junk you're carrying, that's, like, fine, but what if you put all your junk in a container in your base and then someone can come and steal that? That's the question.
Yeah, that's not been talked about. They did say that, like, anything you've got basewoods in a base would basically get destroyed if it got nuked. Like, there's no, like, it just goes.
What, like, yeah, but then it's like, what does that mean? Does it destroy the base, or does it destroy, like, the contents of the base?
Yeah, that they haven't been quite clear about.
Still not specific enough about that. So they need to talk about bases, I guess, in the context of PvP. Because judging by what they've shown of bases, it looks pretty much like a slightly improved version of how you build shit in Fallout 4. Which was bad, so the fact that it's improved at all is good, I guess.
And I suppose the other mild irritation is that it's not going to be launching on Steam.
Yeah.
They're going to be putting it in the Bethesda. Is the Bethesda launcher already a thing?
I think so. I vaguely remembered that was a thing.
Okay.
And I was like, oh yeah, I guess they would do that, wouldn't they?
Yeah. It seems a bit of a shame that you perhaps couldn't buy it on Steam and it just linked to the Bethesda launcher in the same way that the Ubisoft stuff works. Because the Ubisoft stuff isn't great, but it does sort of work. Yeah. So yeah, Fallout 76. Any increase or change in your enthusiasm towards that as a Fallout player?
Not really. They still haven't gone into enough specificity about how it will work in single player, I guess. Because I wouldn't play it in multiplayer. Really, the way I already played Fallout 4 was like an open world survival game, except it wasn't a good enough one of those to stand like that on its own. Right. I just want a game where I can go around and explore and for not really any particular purpose, and that's like the whole point of the game. Rather than Fallout 4, where like whenever you come across a new location, you have to look it up in the wiki, because if it's a location that has a quest line built into it, you have to know whether you're going to break it by going there ahead of the quest line telling you to go there,
right.
And all that kind of stuff. Like, just make the whole world just an explorable place, so I won't have to worry about that, and that'd be better.
That just sounds like poor playtesting in fairness.
Well, that's just what Bethesda games are like. This is how that system works. So many ways you can break stuff by picking up the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Alright, let's talk about Red Dead. That gameplay trailer.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
I'm just going to straight up lead into this and do like trailer critique.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, man? Because,
this is a weird trailer for a Rockstar game, right? They don't normally do these mechanical deep dives, or...
well, they did it for Red Dead, the original. They just don't do it for Grand Theft Auto. Which is, because for Grand Theft Auto, they do just like story and like kind of atmosphere trailers, right?
Yeah, the Hollywood trailer, as Gnome referred to it when she watched it with me. It's like, oh, this is a bit different.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, so this is... I think they did it for Red Dead, but it's so long ago. It was 8 years ago now. But I think they did do this around the time of release. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, it's good to have that breakdown, and that this is going to be a series, right, of trailers. So they were like, next time we'll tell you about Deadeye and improvements and stuff.
Yeah, so it's very clearly not the first we'll see. But then a bit of me is all like, okay, don't go too overboard with this.
Right.
It's like,
don't spoil things.
Yeah, I have that same feeling about some other product that we'll talk about in a second as well.
I don't think they're going to spoil things, because there's going to be so much in Red Dead.
I mean, the story, that you can't. If you're in Red Dead, you're probably in it for the storyline and the world and all that stuff. I mean, did we already know that you weren't playing as Marston in this? That you're actually, was it Arthur something or other?
Arthur Morgan, yeah. We know who you are, and that you're a member of the Dutch Van der Linde gang, alongside John Marston. So in a previous story trailer, you've actually seen him, Marston. I don't think it was John, but like maybe his wife and young son are in one of the camp shots. Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, Abigail and whatever his name, post game. Yeah,
post game Marston. That's his name.
So you know who you are, but from all the previous story trailers, that Arthur seems like, really mean, basically, and so. It was interesting that there is like this gameplay trailer. One of the things it did was confirm that there is a kind of morality system that is like non-binary, which is kind of cool. But it also is like encouraging that you don't have to be an absolute dick, which is what he seems like.
Yeah. You can diffuse. Well, I quite liked the bit where they were talking about like the diffuse or what's the word they were using to? It was like diffuse or
escalate, I suppose.
Escalate. That's it. Yeah. And then there was just that thing where like some dude was clearly getting robbed by the side of the road, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't care, do what you want." And it's like, okay, that's cool. I'm on board with that. I quite like being able to not have to get involved with that stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
And not just get shot at.
Because it was like a binary state in the original. It was like, oh, you've got aggro now. You either had aggro or you didn't, basically. Yeah, you're either involved or not. So, and the involved was usually you have to shoot everyone. So this is quite cool.
It does. The only thing I guess that some of this trailer showed that I think might get everything looks rad apart from this one detail, which is the sort of the fact that there was a wanted meter that seemed to go down during spots, and it's like I'm not sure I want cop chasers.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad in the original one though. If you think you did have that did exist, but yeah, it wasn't as bad as like GTA, where it was like It never had, and I don't think it will, because GTA has that radius system with the radar and where you have to hide in, but I don't think it'll be like that at all. It'll just be like, it was like notoriety, wasn't it? Or like wanted, like the law would. I think you could get out in the, in the barren wasteland, the lawless areas, and be fine.
Yeah, I think it clearly showed the meter going down at one point, just by riding away.
It's more like you can't just waltz into a big city if you're like a wanted man. But yeah, I can see that.
There's not a lot about this trailer that I looked at and thought that's sucky.
It looks great, right?
It looks amazing.
I mean, we kind of knew it would, but I mean, graphically, it looks even better than I thought it would. I think.
I had to turn around. Gnome wasn't really watching it with me. I was watching it in the room, and I did have to sort of basically just turn to her and go, "I know you're going to hate this game. Damn, you have to admit it looks good."
It looks awesome.
And she's like, "Yeah, you're not wrong. It looks very impressive."
Although I have to say, like the first shot, I don't know why they zoomed the camera onto something that I didn't think looked that impressive in the first shot, because like he comes out of a window and rolls onto the mud, and like the idea is that it shows how awesomely like his clothes get all covered in mud as he rolls in the mud, which is really cool. And then later when he's fighting the guy, you can see their footsteps like moving the mud around, and it looks super cool and deforming it. It looks awesome. But when he rolls in the mud, it doesn't deform the mud, and it's like why was
that's a slightly weird takeaway, I suppose.
I guess,
don't know.
But that was like the first shot that they showed, and it's like everything else looks great. It's like, why did they choose to have him slowly roll over the mud, and it doesn't look that?
Because you'd forget about it by the end of the trailer. I don't know.
I guess so, probably. Yeah. Anyway, that's just one thing, but I was like, hang on. But yeah, I mean. And also, this just to be nitpicky. It's like sometimes the interface of water with land doesn't look quite, perfect. But it's open world.
The ripples looked a little bit tessellated, that kind of thing, and things you sort of expect. Like,
exactly.
From something else that is clearly a step up on what they've done before, in many ways. It's like I think the sort of the imperfections stand out a little bit. And it's like, but that's not really a bad thing against them. No. Really, it's hard to be critical of that. It's like they're there for sure, but they're only a problem because everything else is so good.
Exactly, and I think like the character animations look a lot better, which is going a long way. They're not quite Naughty Dog level, but they're a lot.
Yeah, the facial animation looked pretty nice in places, but then it looked pretty good in GTA 5. I did have one issue with the trailer that has me a little bit concerned about characterization and about the animation side of things, which was that there's a scene where they're talking about the leading your camp effectively.
Oh yeah,
it shows Arthur walking away saying, "Hey, we're just going to borrow some money," and he puts his arms in the air and walks away, pretty much exactly like how the main character, I forget his name, but how the business-suited man from GTA 5 does it. Like,
right.
Pretty exactly.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, have they either just ripped that animation from GTA 5, or are they characterizing Arthur as that guy a little bit? And it's like,
I hope not.
I don't know if I want that. Yeah,
I hadn't noticed that, and that strikes me as odd.
Yeah, go watch it again, because I think that's
Michael, right? Yeah,
Michael. Yes, that's it. Because I think there's something very familiar about that, and I'm like, this feels very Rockstar, but not necessarily in the way that I like it.
No, okay, I'll check that.
Because I think that might just be a gesture that they like in that game anyway. Because I'm pretty sure, what is it, the heist guy, the planner or whatever his name is from GTA 5.
The guy in the wheelchair.
I think he does that every now and then, and just sort of puts when they're having conversations, and and when they're sort of arguing with each other, they just have a tendency of putting their hands up. It's like, it just seems like that's the gesture of.
Maybe it's
Rockstar.
just one of their animators is just like that.
just likes that.
Well, I guess it's the easiest and most wildly expressive animation you can make for dismissal.
Yeah,
throw your hands up and walk away. It's a very obvious animation.
I think it sort of makes sense when you're talking about the sort of gangster culture, right? That's kind of a thing. And be like, damn, and the sort of the San Andreas sort of thing. That kind of that might make a bit more sense in that context.
Maybe that's
but
why
I don't know if it felt right here.
Red Dead, though, because you think that gesture seems like a modern gesture.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think you might be right. Yeah, because I don't know. I imagine my Westerners not to be. They don't
move much.
They're not particularly gesticulative, are they? There's I don't even know if that's a word, but it sounded cool. They're not particularly expressive in that way, are they? They sort of it's the Western thing is to be a bit stoic, right? Unless they're kind of unless they're the feeble, oh shucks, your iPod no way, and they're all a bit wobbly all the time, but yeah. But anyway, look rad. It really does.
Fishing confirmed.
Fishing confirmed.
Yep. Wading through water confirmed. I don't know about swimming. Like if John Marston was in that depth of water, he would be dead for sure.
Well, maybe you have a scene where you have to try and get John across a swamp. And he's
that would be shit. Yeah. There was a bit where he was doing hunting, and there was a trail of I don't know if smell trails or something.
Well, I think they've. Yeah, that looks quite lifted from Tomb Raider, in fairness.
Oh, really?
When you because you can wound animals and then they'll go away, and then you can follow them, and then
that's a cool idea, though.
Or maybe that's some Monster Hunter stuff getting in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
just a little bit more than hey, murder thing, get thing.
The horse movement as well. there's definitely some sort of sideways, like, movementy stuff, or some way the skittish horse during the gunfight where it goes around in a circle and stuff that look really cool.
Yeah, because that was when they were talking about horse bonding, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
You can only make it do that stuff if you've got a good horse bond.
And there's different types of horses. Of course, were horses with different stats in the original, but it wasn't like there's different breeds, because this clearly had, like, like work horses, like Shire horses and stuff, and different kinds. Yeah, it was looking kind of cool. And of course, the horse balls. I mean, the main topic of conversation seemed to be on Reddit under the video was like, how soon after gaining control would players in the game shoot off the balls of the horse?
Or just scroll the camera down there and see, they're swinging.
Yeah, it was about 30 seconds is what people were estimating. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Looks awesome. Can't wait.
I imagine that was the... I guess the obvious question to ask at this point is, like, we must have been seeing the Xbox One X version, right?
Who knows? I mean, no, all the button prompts had the PlayStation X and Square and
oh, okay. I didn't spot that. So maybe it is a PS4 Pro one for a lot of the footage.
Yeah,
which would be great, because I will probably pick up a PS4 Pro to play this.
That's the only thing I've got to go on. But all the button prompts that I saw on the, like, dismiss and what were they, like, escalate and diffuse? They had PlayStation symbols on them.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that actually tells you anything.
No. Or maybe they just hadn't packed that in yet so it shows the Xbox controls out of it.
Yeah, could be,
yeah.
Yeah, we shall see. I wouldn't be surprised if they look and perform almost the same. Like,
it would make sense for a targeting point of view, but they're probably, as we know, they must be building this with PC in mind. That they must be this time.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Yeah.
So and because of having to target 4 consoles, effectively,
that's
you
true.
Probably have some of the slider stuff already in their minds.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they did great work with GTA 5 in terms of the optimization.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think it's going to be...
So, I don't think they didn't ever X or Pro up GTA 5, did they? Or...
Not yet. Or maybe they have, because like that multiplayer is still going strong, right?
Yeah, GTA Online is still massive.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what Red Dead Online's going to be like.
Oh god, yeah, I've forgotten about that.
It's probably going to be, that'll be massive, right? Maybe not as big, at least not initially, but it will be a big...
It doesn't have cars and guns. It won't be. I mean, it's got guns.
Seem like
that's a stupid thing to say.
As much options.
Well, we'll see.
Because in GTA Online they put in all kinds of random bullshit that was just like,
they have now.
Clearly
that's
just
true.
Comedy shit.
But they already did like ridiculous like Undead Nightmare for Red Dead, so like it's not like they can't do dumb shit in the
so
Wild West.
We're gonna have a Call of Duty style zombie mode in Red Dead.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that was quite good actually. The Undead Nightmare.
In some ways, like Red Dead might just play a bit more like a traditional MMO. Like for some reason, I'm getting like they could probably do some Guild Warsy type story stuff in Red Dead Online. I don't know,
probably,
but maybe not. The problem they might have the slight problem if there are hundreds of people turning up at a location to fight a boss. That's probably not a thing.
Well, if they instanced it and had the camp system, maybe the camp system is actually part of. I mean, it's obviously a big part of the single player, but maybe they can make that work with the multiplayer, right? Yeah. Anyway, speculation. That's probably a trailer for it.
Yeah. I think it's entirely possible they follow the same pattern as heists, though, right? Because technically heists could be a thing in this game as well.
I mean, heists are just like missions, really, though, aren't they? Like,
sort of. Yeah, but they could do some. They could bring in some. But heists in GTA have always been. It's not just the actual execution, is it? It's like
right. You mean like in single player where it had the like? Yeah, I like the heist system in GTA 5, but I don't know if they'll do that for this. But I suppose they could, and that would work. Yeah,
it's nothing stopping them, really, is there? Like bank's a bank. It just the tools will be different.
Yeah, it's true. And it does play to like a Western genre where they do that in Western films where they're like building up to the big heist or whatever. That is quite a common trope. Or the train robbery or whatever.
Exactly. There'll be a train robbery.
I mean, it starts with a train robbery, I think.
Yeah.
We've seen it in multiple trailers now.
I did too. Get hype.
Yeah,
End
get
of October.
hype. Yeah. Time to book your holiday.
Let's talk about the Smash Direct. Get hype. Get
That's actually level of hype.
I mean, I know this contradicts what I kind of want from the build-up for a game, and they are kind of revealing everything, and they've kind of said they're going to reveal everything about the game before it comes out.
Yeah.
Which I'm not 100% sure I like, because I want like some stuff to be a surprise, maybe. Just a little bit.
I don't know
but
this game is an ideal opportunity to have surprises, really.
Yeah, I don't know. The build-up is the surprise, isn't it? Not actually the release. Which I think is a shame, because I did always sort of like well, what do we have to do to unlock these characters process.
I mean, they're
in the
not
old
necessarily
Smashes.
still going to say that. I mean,
everything's just going to be unlocked this time. It's
not the characters, though. They specifically said you start with the N64 roster and you unlock characters through some mysterious process that they haven't explained
yes, they did. Okay, no, that's fine. But the problem is like none of the characters you get are going to be surprising. Like, there's not going to be like any hiddens. Like, oh, I didn't know they were here.
Technically, the only reason in the older games that the hidden characters were hidden was because the internet wasn't such a big thing back then. I expect we had been talking about like Melee in this age, everyone would have already known all the characters before they came out, even if they hadn't officially been announced.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just not possible anymore, because the moment someone would play the game, it would be like, hey, these guys are in it too.
Yeah. Or like some early build gets out and then disassembled and you find file names and the classic.
Yeah, it is a shame. Like, the internet does spoil a lot.
It doesn't really matter that much for this game. It's not like it's a story that can be spoiled.
I'm just excited for because the way we play it is we tend not to be like, we're not pro, are we? And we don't go through the whole, we're going to pick a stage, we're going to pick characters, we're going to have a proper fight.
No.
We just
don't play one-on-one for a start.
Well, that too. We just want the game to throw us in a random fun scenario. We don't want to pick anything, we just want to go.
So Smashdown is going to be for us, clearly.
Oh, yeah. Smashdown could be cool. So Smashdown is the mode where it's like there's a limited pool of characters, and every time someone picks one...
It's not a limited pool, it's all of them, but then every time you pick one, that one goes away.
But the problem I have with that is, like, if there was like as many characters as there are, right, like starting with all of them and slowly whittling your way down might actually be a little bit problematic, but...
Why?
Because it would take ages.
Not really. If you consider how long a typical session we play Smash Brothers for, I mean, you'd easily
several hours.
Yeah, I mean, you'd easily get through all of those characters in one session.
I guess. There's going to be so many, though.
It means that we won't have to suffer being this, like, oh shit, I'm Bowser again.
And there's over 100 stages, man.
Well, yes.
If you include the Omega and so there's like...
Well, there's 300 if you include Omega and Battlefield, but you don't, because that's not a thing. That doesn't count. I'd only count that if they hadn't made all the Battlefields exactly the same.
Right, yeah.
If they'd made them slightly differently spaced or anything, then you could have that. But no, if they're all exactly the same, that's only one more level.
It's like, I'm sure that there were a couple that they didn't explicitly mention in that video as well that I'm pretty sure are brand new, that they didn't call out as well. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure there were a couple of stages in there. It's like, I don't think I've seen that before. But they didn't say this is a brand new stage in one of their sort of
they're probably
segments.
The ones that were from the 3DS that you don't know.
There were a few from the 3DS.
There's Magican, there's F-Zero, original F-Zero.
Magican. I didn't realise that was on the 3DS. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Oh, an old F-Zero.
Yeah, F-Zero. And the Game Boy Kirby stage.
Oh yeah, I knew about that one. Yeah. Yeah, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe there were some I just didn't realise. Still, awesome that they're there. It looks like they're I was a bit worried after they'd said hey, every character is going to be there, that they weren't going to apply the same mentality to the stages. But the fact that it now kind of
it's not every stage.
Not at this point, no. But they haven't announced everything on that front.
Well, they didn't they cut the fact that they applied a number on the stages implies that it's all of them, except it's clearly not, right?
No,
mainly because the way it's laid out on the screen, there's like a big gap at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's like they wouldn't do that.
It can't be done. It can't be
You're
done.
going to have a grid. You fill in the grid.
There's got to be more. And they've been changing that. What we've been seeing of the menus as they've been revealing.
Well,
things.
the thing that leans into the idea that there's at least probably 5 more levels to fill in that gap at the bottom is every time they've shown the character screen, there's the demo version which clearly doesn't have all of them to start with.
Yeah.
But every other time they've showed it in these videos, it's just a mock-up. It's clearly a mock-up of a character selection screen.
Absolutely.
And that they've just rearranged it as more characters have been revealed.
As they go.
So the fact that they're showing the real stage select screen and there's clearly a blank space at the end of it does imply, 5 or 6 more levels to fill in that gap.
Good nod to bring Castlevania in.
Well, kind of obvious.
Yeah.
And also,
it was in the votes before, right? But
and also, weirdly reconfirming the original leak, but deconfirming the second leak.
what was the second one?
The second one was the more recent one where they suggested that Simon Belmont wasn't going to get in because Konami was being a pain in the ass, and several other. That leak was actually much more extensive and had a bunch of other shit. But that leak is looking less likely now because
Simon's in there.
But then that means the original leak is still on the table, which means we could still see Sora.
I think that's plausible. I think Sora is a very, very plausible shout. Not that the only thing against that, and in fairness, this has already been sort of somewhat poo-pooed by the fact that Cloud's in the game. My reasoning here is that obviously Square have a fairly decent history of Nintendo, but they don't have a decent Kingdom Hearts history of Nintendo.
Yeah, and Kingdom Hearts has always... I mean, the same could be said about Final Fantasy, but Kingdom Hearts has always been more of a PlayStation thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Sony has always pushed it harder than anyone else. Well, and most of the games only came out on PlayStation, so it's... Yeah, that. But I think it would be a fairly decent fit for the game.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so excited for it. I didn't think I would be, but just because my initial thoughts were just hey, it's all the Smashers we've played before, just in one package, whoop-de-doo. But I don't know. The more they talk about it, the more I'm just no, I'm in.
Yeah.
Take my money.
And they haven't even revealed whatever the last secret mode is.
Yeah, what is that? Oh, I so hope that is Subspace Emissary 2. Come on, man. They've already said they've got classic mode single player, which
that is
interestingly,
good for a start.
Yeah, which is good. Yeah, but come on, Subspace Emissary.
Well, the thing that's the most awkward bit of this reveal, which suggests several things that may or may not be true, and is it could go one way or the other. So when they're talking about assist trophies, they here's the Monster Hunter big dragon dude who's an assist trophy.
Yeah.
/ a boss. And they show him as a boss on what is presumably a Monster Hunter stage, because it's just a mountainous area that's not in any clear Nintendo thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it's not a stage. It doesn't show up in the stage list when they show that.
So maybe that's part of some other...
So that could be a boss stage in the single player, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
But then the other question is if it's... Even if it is a real stage and it's just not been added to the stage list yet, or it's in the single player and it's just a boss stage, that seems to be a weird inclusion if you don't also put an actual Monster Hunter character in, right? Because that's just a weird, completely out of the blue reference that's not even really a Nintendo thing.
It's Capcom, isn't it? So Capcom are there because of Mega Man and
characters.
Ryu.
But it's... does seem kind of weirdly misplaced, even in the context of a weird crossover universe single player, to just suddenly go to do a Monster Hunter single boss and that's it.
Can they put other Ryu from Shenmue in? Just so you can have Ryu versus Ryu.
The Shenmue. That would be a terrible fighter.
Oh, that'd be so... But he's a fighter! I mean, he's got proper kung fu.
Really terrible kung fu, yes. I mean, his final smash might be, some kind of forklift, which would be pretty funny.
That'd be so good.
He'd be the Phoenix Wright of this game in, Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Did we know about that feature where, you can have, a weak final smash bar?
No.
A bit like a limit break. Is that new?
Newly revealed.
No.
And the stage morphing.
Yeah, stage
all the
morphing.
menu stuff.
Stage morphing, I don't necessarily care about. Like, unless we can make it so it's like when we push start, like on the like for a random stage select, if it will pick either one stage or a random stage morph between two, and have it so we don't know when it's coming, then I don't care. I think I'd rather have it off.
Well, the question is whether if you set it to random, could it not happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be quite happy with that as well. Like, if like we, you know how we play it, where we're just like random characters, random stage.
Yeah.
If the pick of random stage could also randomize whether stage morph was going to happen,
Yeah.
and when it happens, I'd be all for that. I think that's genius. Not that stage morphing is necessarily, or stage changes, or stages that already had their own morph is necessarily like the best thing about Smash Brothers.
No.
But just adding it. I'm all about adding more random to this, man. And this is the most. It's just the most in every way, and I'm super excited. I don't think I've been this excited about a game for a long time, and I'm on the Red Dead hype train.
Well, it's Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I'm actually saying that I might not have been this hyped since Splatoon 2. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Splatoon, well, I guess Splatoon was kind of the same thing, where it's just an upgrade of the previous thing. Except in Smash Bros. Games, it's a bit more of an upgrade, maybe.
Well, yeah. maybe Sonic Mania. I was pretty hyped for that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
I guess. Although that's always, with Sonic, it's hype with a lot of...
a lot of
risk.
Man, Smash Bros. What we missed? Knuckles is in it. Yeah.
As an assist trophy.
Yeah.
I was like, we already knew that from the website on Sonic's specific Sonic trailer. Has that assist trophy was already known, and Crystal was already known.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. They picked out Zero. Wasn't Zero already an assist?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's weird that they thought like, hey, Zero is it?
Or it was another Mega Man very similar character.
Or maybe
they always are that kind of.
Or maybe they're specifically saying like, hey, Zero is an assist in the style of an assist that can be killed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but a lot of those are just going to be like that now. I guess all those moving characters.
And it's interesting that some of the assists are like bringing back the old Smashes. Like you've got the chef, like using Kirby used to be the chef, didn't he? Yeah, so it's like, oh, that's coming back, but as an assist, and it's like, that's cool.
I mean, presumably it was originally the other way round. I guess. Well, no, I guess the original reference of that would have been one of Kirby's abilities. I think in one of the old.
I don't know where it comes from.
If I remember rightly. But then I think that character is now in Star Allies or whatever. Or that boss, I presume, in Star Allies.
And then we had the one more thing reveal of King K. Rool being there as well.
Yep.
General Rool.
Yeah, exactly. There's that reference. Got around to it a bit.
Callback! Yeah, that's good. That's a logical addition.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Damn, man, this game.
Mm-hmm.
This game's going to be so cool. I'm tempted to... There is a limited edition they've announced for the EU.
Yep.
I'm tempted to get that, just because...
It comes with the adapter. That's the convenient part.
Yeah, actually, it's not too bad a deal. I mean, the crazy part is that if you're looking at it from a pure price perspective, it's £90. But from... Like, it actually throws in a brand new GameCube controller and the adapter, and it's like, and a steel.
And the game is going to be £60.
I think they've said it's already going to be 50.
Okay.
Amazon are taking pre-orders at 50.
Well, that doesn't mean they've said it's going to be 50. That means Amazon has guessed it's going to be 50.
Well, Amazon have that kind of guarantee,
Amazon do.
In that, like, if they ever because it's 50 now, the lowest it can be is 50.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine everywhere else would have to match that. Also, 50 is kind of the max for a console game at the moment.
I don't know if that's true.
Unless you're buying limited editions.
Well, I mean, that's a different thing.
$60, I guess.
Yeah, Red Dead is 50, I think.
Yeah.
Unless you get the special edition. The
one thing I'm a little bit disappointed the limited edition doesn't come with, because it comes in a nice... okay, the box looks fairly big, right? But a nice big black box. But
it's got to have a GameCube controller.
And the adapter, and presumably the boxes for those. I don't know, because that's how Nintendo tend to do these things. They just put boxes in boxes. Yeah. But I was kind of hoping they'd have like some kind of like either poster or like. What I'd really want is like a fabric or a canvas of that Smash Brothers like long picture of just everyone on it.
It's on that box.
You Rad.
Put that box on your shelf and just use that as your artwork.
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is this GameCube controller what's it got to distinguish it from an original GameCube controller?
It's got the Smash Brothers logo on it.
Yep.
Is it actually otherwise the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo have gone out to a third party to build new ones, so they're not Ninty aren't making them themselves. But that's true of what they did with the Wii U controllers.
You do wish that they just fucking made a USB one.
Yeah, I do.
It would have been way easier than this whole adapter situation.
I think there are.
Then again, you wouldn't have been able to plug 4 of them in at that point.
And your original Cube controllers, which, in fairness, I now have a deadline by which I should repair some of my old controllers. So. Oh, it's just going to be the best. Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Smash Brothers for days. I remember how obsessed I was when the Wii U version came out. In fairness, I was playing nothing but Smash for a fairly long time. It's even all the single player stuff and all the stupid mini games. Not as long as previous editions. I think I sunk the most time into maybe Melee.
Yeah, probably Melee. Because
I put a lot of time into Brawl, in fairness, the single player stuff in Brawl.
Yeah, I played that quite a lot as well, actually, I guess. But Melee probably the most. Because that was the one where we both had it individually.
Yeah.
And we both had our own
every trophy imaginable in those games, I think. In Melee.
See, I'm not even sure that's true. I don't think I got
100% trophies.
No.
Random.
Some of the requirements were ridiculous.
Well, and the grid was the problem. The unlock grid.
The unlock grid.
I mean, like Brawl and...
Oh, yeah, they have that in Brawl, yeah. And the Wii U one was tough as well, which I didn't get nearly as far through that as I'd like.
And then there was the whole... Even going back to the older ones, you had, like, stuff like 100-man Melee and stuff where it was, like, fucking impossible.
Wow, yeah, the old Melee, 100-man Melee challenge was... That you needed for a specific...
specific thing.
Yeah. Boy, that was tough. I think that stuff is quite significantly easier now, isn't it? To actually do a 100-man Melee and then but not necessarily within time limits and things like that. It feels easier, or maybe we've just got better.
Well, maybe, but also that kind of thing is on the grid now, right? So if you can just skip it if you don't want to go through that effort. Use a hammer. Well, never do. Just keep them forever because that's how you do those.
Yeah, I've never used one.
No. But you've also never finished the grid, so...
But you can't tell what else is in the grid.
You can never see You can never see far enough ahead. Just show us the whole list of challenges.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And then we'll just knock off all the ones that we don't want to do right at the start. That'd be kind of dumb.
Right at the end. I can't achieve that one.
I guess you'd have to experiment, yes, to find out which ones you actually think you're never going to be able to do.
Some of the minigame ones or home run challenges. I suck at those.
Home run's not that bad once you work out what the combo is.
It's just always because the sack you can just jiggle around a bit and be just in an awkward position at the end of the time, and it's
you have to work out a very specific combo.
Yeah. Alright, Smashy Smash for Switch. Definitely the game the Switch needed this year.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it needed something, and that's what they've got double down on.
Yep. Good choice.
Nothing but Smash. Cool.
They might need to tell us about what's happening next year sometime soon, though. I know Ninty tend not to, but...
Well, it'll be a January Direct, probably, like Smash Brothers.
Smash.
And then they'll say,
hey, here's the DLC for Smash Brothers.
Yeah, probably.
We're going to charge you another 90 quid for DLC packs we've got planned. Oh, and also make sure you have Nintendo Online. Keep forgetting that's coming. That's coming soon, right?
September.
Yeah.
Late September.
Too soon.
And that is the news.
That is the news.
It's time for what you've been playing.
We're already running long.
Yeah.
I mean, before we start talking about games, we've got like 45 minutes until we hit our normal...
But how much games do we have to be able to talk about this time?
Well, let's find out. What you've been playing, Rob?
Ooh. Yeah, I will go first this time. I normally throw the baton, but Zach's been involved in Smash, so I don't feel so bad.
Well, and also I don't really have that much news to say, so...
Alright. God, what have I been playing?
You can play Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, let's go straight to that. Let's go straight to the big hitter. I started playing Final Fantasy 15, Windows Edition. That's actually its title. It's called Windows Edition.
Windows Edition.
That game is weird. It feels very un-Final Fantasy.
Okay. I mean, Final Fantasy's quite weird for a start, so... Generally.
Yeah, I know, but you sort of know what you're getting into with a lot of Final Fantasies. Even 13, there's a certain... I don't know. Yeah, there's a thing about it. Whereas this, I'm not really getting any of that vibe. It's just...
Well, it's a bit more muted, isn't it? In terms of it doesn't have such insane costumes and stuff, does it, as usual?
Or, well, yeah, I mean, everyone likes leather. That seems to be its thing. Everyone from the Crown City likes leather jackets. Because apparently that's their uniform, but it doesn't really look like much of a uniform because everyone's wearing different leather jackets. I don't know. They're quite lax about their uniforms in the Crown City. I don't know. Well, it's the fact that there's so little story thus far, actually, is the most un-Final Fantasy thing about it. I sort of expect to settle in for like a half-hour cutscene or something. Or some big exposition dump about the world and why things are what they are and what's going on. This has none of that. It has a very quick video sequence basically saying, good luck on your travels. Don't piss off the king. Don't bring our country into disrespect or any of that, disrepute. Have fun. And then you're in a car on the road, or very briefly, because then you're immediately pushing that car to the garage, as is the classic. Because everyone knows how that game starts. But it's like, that's it, really. You're not really told a great deal. It's like you're going to a faraway land to marry someone you knew as a kid, so your countries are brought together. And thus far, that is basically the entirety of the overarching plot that I know. The overarching plot. It's just like, that's it. And it's like, that is very not Final Fantasy. Normally there's like a big hour or two sequence at the start that's like... not necessarily cutscene, but like a playable sequence to introduce you to the world. And
well, the other question is the other thing that Final Fantasy does that it could be, if you depending on how much you've played at this point or how much you know about it, is it could still be the fake out.
True.
Where it's just the whole garden sequence in Final Fantasy VIII, where you go on that first mission, and that doesn't really have anything to do with the actual plot.
Sure.
Then the garden takes off and starts flying around the world, and all this weird bullshit happens.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure what I'm playing actually I'm not. The more I think about it, I was about to say I'm pretty sure that what I'm playing right now is kind of the loop of this game, but I'm just very unsure about the whole thing at this point. I'm about 6, nearly 7 hours in, and so far it feels like I've just been sort of you don't have full control of your car, so you can't drive off road. You can only you stick to the roads and be you just sort of drive vaguely near a place, maybe do some combat or pick up some treasure there. I'll come back to the combat. But yeah, maybe do a thing there. Maybe I don't even know really how I've spent that time. That's the weird thing. It's how have I spent 6 hours doing stuff? It's I don't really know what I've achieved particularly. I think I've spent one of those hours fishing. Just sat on a quayside trying to fish, which is, as it turns out, relatively difficult to get fish's attention unless you have the right equipment, which I'm not sure I do. But yeah, you sort of go to a place, you maybe kill some things, you maybe learn a little bit about the combat system, because it's trying to tutorialize a little bit as you go, but it's a little bit clunky. And then maybe go talk to a person who says go hunt these things, then you go and hunt those things, and then come back and then get some tips. And I think the game is basically just sort of embracing the road trip thing at the moment and not really sort of being particularly explanatory about stuff, to the point where I'm not sure if I really should be investing all this time going around and just killing things.
It's like you don't know if this is like completely pointless. Basically.
Yeah,
it's like you don't know if there's going to be a fake out where it's just like all the stuff that you did before that was basically irrelevant because now everything's changed.
Well, I think the area will be accessible again at the very least, because there's a bit. Basically, I'm at a bit where if I'm following the main plot, I'm at a bit where like I need to catch a boat somewhere else,
right?
But the boats aren't there, and so I kind of have to do a thing for a guy, which was basically a fetch quest, and he'll sort out a boat somehow. But like in the menus and stuff, it says this is a recommended level for this quest, and it's like level 4 or something, and I'm already like level 7 because I've been doing side stuff on the way. But then the moment where I got to the point where it's like where I could get on a boat, it goes, "Hey, you sure you want to leave this area? You might not be able to come back for some time." And I'm like, "Well, I better go do all the other stuff then." But of course, now I'm not sure if that's what I should be doing because I seem over-leveled for the recommended level indicator on the quest.
Yeah, it's like
and it's like, should I be spending this time?
If you can come back here at some point, are you going to be super high level?
Yeah, am I going to be over-leveled for the stuff?
Or is it going to scale at some point?
It's just that I don't think there's a particularly good sense of flow yet. Like, I'm not sure what I'm doing is the right thing to be doing. Whereas, you dig into an FF, like a normal FF game, and like, yeah, grinding's fine, I can do that, I don't mind doing a bit of that. Being overleveled isn't too much of a problem. It's like, it's just part of how that game plays. You might want to dig into that stuff because there's things you want the grind for. But at this point in time, I'm not sure what I would want the grind for. Because you don't get money out of fights anymore. So if you want money, you can't just go and grind fights. You'd have to potentially grind hunting missions, but they're worth so very little after the first time you do them that I'm not sure that's worth it.
They've moved on to an actual item-based economy now. You actually have to get things and sell them rather than just money coming out of boxes.
Yeah, you don't get money out of... I've never got money out of a box. The only time I've ever got money, I think, was out of... Other than Cindy gives you 1,000 gil at the start for some reason. There's a... Yeah, whenever we do the hunting missions, it's like you get some money back out of it. Or if some of the side quests you'll get some money for helping people out and stuff like that. But it's not like you can just find money anymore. That doesn't seem to exist. But it's even like little things. It's like I think this system is actually kind of awesome. You don't gain any of your experience until you camp out or go to sleep.
Right.
So
like Dark Souls.
Yeah, kinda. Like your experience is all being tallied up in the background, but you don't cash it in until you go camp. But the whole camping process is actually kind of neat. It's like, this is where they really succeed, I think, on their road trip aesthetic. Because it's like, you get a little sequence of them setting up camp and things like that. And there might be a conversation or two started with some of the characters. And so there's a sort of bonding thing going on. And it's, and then, and possibly my favourite animation in the entire game so far, you have Ignis standing there going, "What shall I cook this evening?" And he's sort of like got his like hand up to his chin, and he's like having a think. And then you pick from the list like what bit of food you want based on the buff it will give you tomorrow, and how much food you actually have to make that stuff. And then you click it, and he just sort of clicks his finger casually. But then he walks away in the most casual manner. Like the finger he's used to click, he then just swings his arm by his side and saunters off while the game slowly fades out. And it's like, there's just something super awesome about that. That's like, this is actually how, like, there's a little bit of, this is actually how this guy might be, and I believe it. Like, about it, that's just that little thing. It's like, it's excellent. And then you get the most beautifully rendered piece of food presented to you that I've ever seen in a video game.
Really?
It's just like,
you somehow cook while camping.
Yeah. There's a little bit of like, how did you make that on that? But magic. The food graphics. Incredible. It's like, that egg is so perfectly shiny in the way that a fried egg should be. It's like, it's amazing.
It's a good egg.
Yeah, it's a damn good egg. There's a bit of pizza that I've got that I'm not quite sure if, like, it doesn't seem to require any ingredients, so I don't know if this is a random one-off that I have, so I haven't like cooked it yet. But I'm sort of, I'm really excited about the moment where I get to see, oh, look at this beautifully rendered pizza. Just, it's so dumb, but it's like, it's amazing. And I just love that whole thing, like, because then it like tallies up the points. You get there's a little scene in the background of them just hanging out eating whatever specific food you just cooked, which has a different animation based on the style of the food you've just cooked and the location that you're in. It's like, and then probably the best thing about the whole game is that Prompto is a photographer. So he's like, during your travels, he's taking photos of places you've been, and in the middle of certain fights and stuff, he's taking a little shot and stuff like that, and it presents you with a selection of them at the end of the day that you can then go through and pick out the ones you like. And if Prompto thinks I don't think you have much control of this, but if Prompto thinks that he's done a fairly good job, then his photography skill levels up. And then it's like, I don't really know what that's for, but I don't know, it's just cool sometimes. You go for a shot and you see something backflipping over an enemy, and it's like, okay, that's rad, that actually happened. And it's just, I don't know, it's bizarrely cool. Even if it has nothing to do mechanically with the gameplay, which, as I say, in terms of flow, I find a little strange. But the combat itself is weird. It's just like, it's a real-time system now. And you have the option to turn on something called wait mode, which I've turned on just while I'm getting a feel for it. Except even that's weird, because wait mode seems to have mechanics dedicated to it that just wouldn't be there, I think, if you didn't turn that on. But anyway, much of a muchness. But the basic idea is that you, like, if when combat initiates, you're some distance away from the enemy, so you have to close the gap a little bit. And then when you're a certain distance away, you can activate a warp strike, which will just, like, Noctis will throw his weapon at the enemy you're looking at. It will land, and then when it lands there, you warp to it and do some damage to it, and the damage is multiplied by the distance you traveled. Something like that. And when you're there, you then basically you just hold B, basically, to do an attack with whatever weapon you've got equipped, and it's sort of like an auto attack, I guess. It just keeps going while you're holding B. So the juggling act is no longer about picking what attack you're doing. It's like, just like, should I be attacking right now? And where do I need to be moving to do the most damage? Do I actually need to swap to holding X right now to actually defend? But defending is odd, because defending is phasing, effectively. When something throws an attack at you, you don't actually really dodge it. You phase through it, which consumes magic points. So you have a limited amount of defense. So you're like having to watch your like magic points a little bit to be like, okay, like I need to actually not be. I need to get out of this situation because I can't just keep defending because I'm going to run out of defense soon. And there are ways of getting that back, which basically means warp to a specific point. Weirdly, like there's a rock over there, I can go stand on it, and that will give me my magic points back for some reason. Or I can hang off this cliff in the sky, and that will give me my magic points back, and I can heal a little bit while I'm hanging here, and then like choose to warp back down to the floor to strike a guy. And it's like, it's just really odd. It's really like super fast and super chaotic, and you've got your three friends doing stuff as well. And you can sort of try I guess there's a sort of strategy where if you warp in at the right side of an enemy where one of your friends is helping out and do it at the right time, you do a link-up attack with them that does more damage and occasionally gets you a high five in the middle of a fight, which is, awesome. You guys just casually look at each other and go, yeah! Yeah. It's just a really strange thing. And I'm not 100% sure at this point in time if I'm getting on with it or not, because it's frankly, it's like nothing else I've played, really. So
it's not necessarily a bad thing.
It really isn't. It's just I don't know if I like this yet. I mean, I did a mission for a cat. Like I gave a cat some fish, like some pristine cooked fish. Didn't get me anything, but I made the cat happy. Okay. But it got me some experience. It gave me some experience points. And I can now walk past that cat and press X and it will meow at me. So,
previously it would hiss at you.
Yeah, high five the cat.
Yeah, it wouldn't say anything before. It can't high five the cat. I would totally do that if I could. It's not without. I mean, immediately, I don't think it's without problems. In that there are some times where I don't think the graphics are very, very nice, but they do suffer, I think, from like. So I've got most of the NVIDIA extra tech turned on. Like it has some hair tech, and it has some foliage tech that's like like very specifically like this is NVIDIA stuff. I've got all that turned on, and I think actually I don't know what it's doing because the foliage looks pretty good and it doesn't seem to suffer from too much pop-in. But the game does seem to suffer in both the hair and the foliage with quite a bit. It's like the anti-aliasing for some reason doesn't apply to foliage and hair.
Right. So a lot of jacking from the hair.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if like maybe turning that off gets rid of that, but maybe then the hair wouldn't be quite so detailed because it does look pretty great. Generally. And some of the facial animations aren't all that. Like during cutscenes and like specific scenes, they're pretty okay. It's not class leading stuff here, but when you're just casually talking to random NPCs or stuff like that, it can be pretty chunky. I guess like any RPG really, there's got to be places where it falls apart. And there's a little bit of that there. So some of the animations don't like the open worldy animations. Like they've sort of hyper stylized how Noctis run. He does run a little bit like a reluctant teenager, kind of like, oh god, I've got to go do this thing. Oh, like he animates a little bit like that. And of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's animations for like climbing over rocks properly or bumping against the terrain right. He'll sort of like just jiggle about or. Yeah, you know how that thing where the game's basically positioning to make you sort of fit in the environment a little bit, like right. That will happen, and the camera does that as well. The camera's a little bit juddery if like it butts up against some terrain and things like that. So it's like it's not without some flaws, I guess, because the game they've not done open world all that much, I suppose, in Final Fantasy. But no, I suppose they've been doing it since 13 to some degree.
Yeah,
but
they did a whole lot of MMO, which I guess you could argue is kind of open world.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, there's definitely some sort of some polish that I guess that should be there that isn't. That I would expect from like a top tier Square Enix game, I guess, that just isn't quite there. And I wish there was more. Like, it's got like a banter system that at first seems well suited again to the mechanics. So when you're out in the wilderness, for instance, it's like your characters will sort of say something like, "Oh, geez, it's hot," and then one of them will make a joke about it. But the problem is that I've already heard that same sequence of events like 5 times or
right,
something like that, and it's like there's not enough of that stuff to make it convincing. Like the number of times they'll wander to an area I've been a billion times and Gladio will just go, "It's nice here," and one of them will just go, "Yeah." Or as the sun's going down, Ignis will go, "Sultry." And like, I'm not even sure that makes a great deal of sense, but like as it's sort of like hitting dusk, like he'll just go, "Sultry," and one of the other characters will just go, "Yeah." And it's like, okay, you don't need to play that stuff quite so often. And there's not enough of it.
That's the classic problem with those things.
Yeah,
like, it's
just
never
not enough
the
parks.
system's bad. It's just there's never enough parks. Yeah.
So we'll see. It's got some of the Final Fantasy-ness that I haven't encountered them, but I know there's flans in this universe.
You eat them. Delicious flans.
Probably, actually. Yeah, I know there's some like them flan-shaped lures for fishing. And I haven't come across chocobos yet, although I have come across dubstep chocobo music.
Okay.
Because it's one of the things, it's like the first track on the radio you can put on. It's by bloody Afrojack, like a proper...
Well, I mean, that's basically what they, the car in this game is like the chocobo.
Yeah, kind of. Except the car won't go off-road, and you need the chocobos for that.
But they're like, if we're going to have you ride this car, we're going to have it play some kind of take on the chocobo music.
Dubstep chocobo, man. It has got like the albums of previous FF games that you can buy and put on the car stereo if you want as well. So one of the first ones I found was like Memories of FF8, and it's like, oh sweet, there you go, I'm sorted. And like I think I've got Memories of FF1 as well as one of them I've bought, and it's like but it's not like just the NES soundtrack. It's like they've made it, it's like a reorchestrated or rearranged version at least. So there's some effort there, but maybe they've lifted that from other times they've done that. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the theatre room soundtrack.
Not really that much reorchestration of the older games in that.
No, because it was kind of faithful, wasn't it? So yeah, it's a weird thing. I'm definitely going to stick with it just because it's so bizarre, and I'm kind of into its camping mechanic. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't entirely convinced at this point.
Gotcha.
Or was entirely convinced. Yeah. We'll see. It might, as I say, it might expand out. But I just don't know if I should just be mainlining the story at this point to come back to it, because I'm still in chapter 1 of something that I know has at least 13 chapters, and I'm like 6 hours in, and it's like, oh god, this could be a really long game.
Yeah, it will be, I'm sure.
But then again, it could fall into the classic chapter trap where there's just like
random
half-hour chapters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And also the Windows version has all the DLC that they've released thus far as well. So there's I think there's at least 3. Oh, I think there's a DLC story pack for each of the friends.
Right.
So
do you
there's
think
those to do.
Content is like inserted in the middle?
No, it's definitely suggested that because I went into the menu and looked at it, and it's like, do you want to do episode Ignis? And I was like, oh, let's have a look. Let's click that. See what it does, and it goes. You should probably finish the game first. I mean, you can, but you should probably finish the game. And it's like, oh, okay, fine. So I don't think it's...
That's good.
Yeah, I don't think it's like inserted in. I think it's like something you can choose to do afterwards. And it's just some other weird stuff that I think might be like hangovers from the fact that they did the Comrades multiplayer update for it at one point, which lets you sort of co-op it in places. But I'm not sure if that's a whole different mode or if that's like you can co-op it in your single-player campaign. But there's just a thing I walked up to, and it's like, oh, the spirit of Avataria or something is with you, and you can just make yourself look different. Except I haven't got a lot of clothes, so it's just like a guy I can make myself a guy in a t-shirt.
Presumably that's where you could theoretically be Gordon Freeman.
Yeah, I guess. Yes.
For that pack.
Of course. Yeah, that's exactly where that will turn up. Except I haven't got any of that stuff. No. Yeah. And I played a terrible minigame that I thought was going to be pinball, but was kind of bad. And I played that for far too long because I couldn't figure out how to actually die.
Pinball's so bad that you can't fail.
Well, yeah, it's weird. It's not really. It's a bit like Beyblade, but on a pinball table-like surface. It's like you push your thing upward, like you get a sort of swing at the bottom of the table, and then you ping a thing upwards, and you're supposed to hit these static objects so many times to murder them. But I don't know. It wasn't really. And in the end, I ended up trying to figure out, okay, how do I actually? I don't want to play this anymore. There is a quit button, but could I actually just get myself killed? And I couldn't really, so I just hit the quit button after a while and be like. I'm a bit worried that there was actually, if I had just kept going, that there was some Uber unlock or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was taking so long and it's so boring. That it was just like, I can't be faffed with this. Yeah, it's Final Fantasy 15.
Cool. JRPG of the month. And what's next?
Trying to think what else I should talk about. I did briefly tinker with some more Halo Wars 2. Which Zach all the tail end of a ridiculously long game I was having against. Like, I upped the difficulty a little bit and started to have a real problem in just winning. I mean, I suppose that's what upping the difficulty does, but, you know, the game I was playing ended up in like a stalemate where I'd launch an attack, he would defend it, then he'd counter-attack, and then I'd defend it. Rinse and repeat for like an hour and a half. Until it got to the point where it's like, okay, I need a different strategy. What can I do? No one's bought a super unit yet. Let me just... Well, next time all of my guys die, I'll have enough unit cap for a super unit. Let's buy that and see what happens. And then I just walked it. It was just like, as soon as I had that condor, it was like, oh, I can just flatten this guy. And then I looked at like how much more effort I would have to put in to get even some of the easier achievements in that game. And it's like, oh, maybe I'm done. That's
right.
It's fine. It's
more like there is more than you expected, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit, and in some ways, I'm a little bit disappointed that it didn't have some of the weirder. When I started digging, like it doesn't have some of the weirder multiplayer modes that I kind of enjoyed from the first one. Like one of my favorites was this sort of. I don't know what really cool. It's like a capture the one flag mode. But where a unit would spawn on the level and the first person to kill it a unit would be holding on to that item. and you then had to keep that unit alive for a certain period of time to get a point. But that mode totally doesn't exist in Halo Wars 2, and I was a little bit disappointed to learn that. It's like I kind of enjoyed that one. It was a little bit like random because where the thing spawned was quite important to who was going to claim it first. But then there was you could always just go after it and stop the point in that scenario if you managed to kill that specific unit. I don't know. Maybe this game's focus on like leader powers and more long range weaponry may have poo-pooed that whole thing. So maybe they cut it because it just wouldn't have worked. I'm not sure, but yeah, shame that that's not there. Anyway, yeah, I think I might be done with that.
Fair. Speaking of Halo, random story, but like for some reason I was looking up Halo music on YouTube the other day. And there was this little bit, I think I got it from a cutscene from Halo 2, and like it's just like a really short measure or whatever, but it's a really nice kind of melancholy, like I don't know, it's very simple. It's like da 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 like that, and it was from the middle of like I was trying to figure out why do I remember this bit. Or like, why is this important or something? And I was trying to work out, it's like from the middle of like the High Charity Suite or something. So, and it's not used in any important part. So I was trying to work it out. It was just in one, it's just a nice string bit. And it was just in one like cutscene in the middle of the game where the Arbiter's talking to the commander dude, with the white shirt. And it's like, why is this so good?
The shipmaster.
Yeah, the shipmaster guy. And then I realized they reused it in the ending of Halo 3, the same bit.
Interesting.
Okay. I was like, okay. Like the bit where Lord Hood is talking or whatever, explaining, I don't know. And it was like, okay, well, maybe that's it, because like it seems like he dies or whatever, doesn't he? Or like they think he has, or maybe it has some emotional resonance.
Yeah,
like,
he's MIA, isn't he?
Yeah, what is this about? And then I looked in the comments on one of them, and it's like, yeah, this is great. This is really emotional. Sounds a lot like this bit in Finding Nemo. And I looked up, and yeah, it sounds identical to like a measure in Finding Nemo soundtrack. And that is probably what I'm thinking of, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I was like, when did Finding Nemo came out? And it came out, of course, the year before Halo 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been a subconscious quoting there from Marty McDonald. I think he might have watched that film.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because it's a good moment, I think. I can't find it because I haven't got Finding Nemo, but I think it's a bit in the middle where like it's like a wistful bit where he's stuck in the whale or whatever, and his son is still millions of miles across the ocean, and he's sort of looking over and
sort of trying to be reassured by Bluefish.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's a really nice little measure, and it's very simple. It's only like 3 or 4 notes, but it's like compare the Halo to Finding Nemo. It sounds like almost the same.
Weird.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have to go find that. That's
so
strange.
If you want to look it up, it's for some reason the Finding Nemo score part is called Haiku, and the Halo score part is called Respite.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, check it out.
I probably heard the bit you mean.
You probably know the bit.
That rings a bell actually, because I've got the Halo 2 OST. And I remember I do remember one of the tracks was called Respite. So yeah. Okay.
Well, it's like in the middle. You have to scrub through the High Charity track, I think, to get to it, because it's like one of the measures of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, random story about Halo music where I was like, hang on, why is this so good? And it's like, oh, I think that might be from Finding Nemo.
That might have been stolen. Interesting. That's fun.
Anyway, been playing anything else?
I'm trying to think what's worthy to talk about, because I've been playing a lot of little things here and there. There's 2 more things I can think of that are probably worthy, and then I'll yield. I finished my run on Sonic Mania Plus.
Oh yeah.
Oh, did we talk about that at all last time?
Yeah,
I think we did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I finished that run, and it's like, I guess I'm a little disappointed with it in that I don't think quite so much of it. There weren't as many tweaks as I was expecting. Really, there are a couple, and they do improve things generally whenever they turn up. But I still had to do that final boss that I don't really like And you didn't get a nice new end sequence or anything like that once you'd done it, because, well, unless you do if you manage to get all the emeralds. But I couldn't get more than... I only got 2 of the bloody emeralds, because those special stages are so hard! And I didn't find as many of the repositioned gold rings as I would have liked. I would have liked to have done a lot more of that, but I just couldn't locate them. So yeah, it was good fun playing it through again. Of course it was, but it's like I don't know. I was kind of hoping for more from this expansion. And if there is more, I haven't seen it, and I don't know how to see it. So we'll see. It gave you a sort of stat breakdown at the end, but I can't remember if it does in the main one. They'll be like, hey, here's the time it took you to get through every stage. So maybe there's a time attack element to it that I don't know about, but. And I did die once, frustratingly. Like, in the sense that I lost all my characters once and had to continue in its live system. And that was on the final boss. And it's like, damn it! I nearly had quote-unquote perfect run, other than the emeralds. Yeah, Sonic Mania is a good game.
It really is.
But I think I would have liked more from the DLC. Which isn't really a DLC. I'm not sure you can count it as a DLC particularly. It's just
because it's not really actual new content. It's just old content rearranged.
Like the only new stuff really is the harder special stages. But
new. Cool.
I also finally got around to doing the Adventures of Captain Spirit. The sort of don't nod teaser for Life is Strange 2.
Yeah.
I don't know really what I was expecting from it, to be honest, but for me it was quite an empty experience. Not a lot to it, not enough to it.
Right, yeah.
And I think you basically get the gist of what it completely the gist of what it is and where it goes and what it does from that trailer we saw at E3.
Yeah.
It doesn't really add to it. There is one tiny little detail right at the very end that hints at some of the some of the more interesting stuff from the first Life is Strange game. Not the prequel game, but the first Life is Strange game. And it's just oh, couldn't we have had slightly more of this, or maybe slightly more of a hint of this? It's it only took me 90 minutes to get through, and it's it's clearly intended as a teaser for Life is Strange 2 and and the direction that might take. And we know a little bit about how far ahead of where this thing takes place. It's 3 years or something after the Adventures of Captain Spirit is when Life is Strange 2 is set, and it just basically devolves into almost like a classic point and click adventure. It's you've got a checklist of things you need to do. You need to go find the items and then go to the place to do a thing. Rinse and repeat. And there are a couple of puzzles, but they're very light puzzles. Apart from 2 of them that I genuinely didn't figure out how it was going to be, because it just was never explicitly mentioned what the solution was. And then I went and looked them up afterwards, and it's oh, right. I guess I could have figured that one out, but this other one, no, I would never have figured that one out. What the hell was the clue to that? But I don't think I'm missing much. Because I went and looked up what they actually were, and it's no, I'm pretty sure I haven't missed much. Where that game is best is when it sort of drifts into the kids' sort of imagination a little bit. But even that, I feel is a little underdone and could have been done. They could have done way more with it. But whatever, this thing's free, and is intended to sell Life is Strange 2. So, like I said, I'm not 100% sure what I was expecting, but I'm also not 100% sure it's the best advert for the next game, because there's just nothing. There's nothing there, as you expected. You've got a little bit of that deadbeat dad. He's not all that great vibe going on, and. The kid's monologue is all hey, there was a better time. And he's clearly crafting the world that he imagines and his sort of superhero persona out of his trauma a little bit. And, that's kind of spelled out for you a little bit. But it's just, there's not enough twists. There's not enough, like, this doesn't really go anywhere. It's just like, this is pretty much exactly what I expected. Which is a shame. You may skip. I think even if you're a Life is Strange fan, you could probably skip.
Right. Skip that.
Yeah. I'll stop for now unless I can think of anything else interesting. But
cool.
Yeah.
Zeg, what have you been playing?
I mostly continue playing No Man's Sky, I guess. Which has continued to get, like, increasing. It's like, the longer you play it, the more you remember how the things that originally annoyed you still haven't been fixed. And it continues to be slightly inconvenient in many ways. Like, still things about the UI that are just, like... I feel like it's inconsistent, but I suspect that it's just the PC version that suffers the most because the PC version has control binds for things that would presumably all be on more or less one button on the console versions. Like, the prime example that I've been experiencing a lot, because I've been trying to get money by basically crafting stuff in my base and, like, refining things. The one bit of UI that I've been finding really annoying is, like, the UI for accessing the refiners, because it's basically like a whole series of different random buttons for no particular reason. Like, when you walk up to the refiner and you hold down E to open it, that's the generic, like, access things in your environment is to hold down E. And it's hold down because that's just the UI of this game has a lot of situations where you have to hold down the button. You don't just push. That's how it used to be in the original release as well, but it still continues to mostly be like that, except sometimes it's not. So you hold down E to open up the refiner. You've got the input slots and the output slots. You mouse over the input slots, and you can't just click on the input slots. For some reason, you have to mouse over them and then push X, because that's how you open the input menu. Then you look through your little, really kind of overly small menu for choosing what you want to input. It's only got like 2 lines, whereas your inventory can be like 40 slots or something. It's just like, that could have expanded maybe to fill more of the screen rather than making you page through it. It's not even a scroll bar, it's like page by page. You WASD your way through your pages of inventory to find the thing you want to put in there. Then you can click on the thing you want to put in. That's a click. And then you can either click on the button to start the refining process or hold E on it again to trigger that. And then when you want to take stuff out, when there's something in the output slot, you can click on that, not hover over it and press X like you do with the input, because it's only hover over and press X when it's an empty slot. If there's something in the input slot you want to get out that's excess, you can click on that at that point, and that opens a different menu. And then this different menu brings up a list of all the inventories you can put the stuff into, and then you mouse over that and click on one of those, or you can press X on that, because not E. It's just like, sometimes it's click, sometimes it's E, sometimes it's X. You're just not actually entirely sure which one you want. And it's like, what is this like on the console? Because it all must presumably just function on one button, like the confirm button.
Or maybe it does, or maybe the context of what X and E means is somewhat maintained a bit better on console compared, like, as in maybe it is still the same, like, well, X maybe X, or like E maybe Y or something, or A or something on the controller, whatever. But like maybe the context of what those buttons usually mean is somehow maintained a bit better.
Maybe, but it's just
like Y is always this particular type of action, and you're trying to do that type of action.
It's mainly the thing where it's just like when it's an empty slot, you have to hover over it and press X, but when it's a full slot, you can click on the thing that's in the full slot, and then that brings up the menu for that. It's like, that seems really unnecessary, and I'm not sure even how that is a thing that would ever make sense. Because you just click on the empty slot, surely, and then that should just bring up a menu of what you want to put in that slot. But clicking on it doesn't. It just, like, flashes up the thing where it says push X for a second. It's like, that's not helpful in any way. Or, just have both work.
Yeah, I guess.
Would equally be valid. And, the holding down is the thing that always makes that game slightly too slow. It's just like, if you want open a container, hold down E and wait for the little bar to fill up. And
I mean, because that would there be a different action for just tapping on it?
No, there's no real things that you only just tap on to cause anything to happen. The only case where the holding down thing makes sense is in the list of inventories you can send stuff to. One of them is your freighter, and because, as I previously discussed, you can't really get stuff back from your freighter very easily without either being on it or doing the weird, like, through the storage container method.
Right, yeah.
That's a hold, whereas everything else in that list is a click. To just sort of ensure that you don't accidentally send stuff to your freighter.
Right, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, any sort of, like, action that might actually have an irritating consequence to deal with if you've done it wrong.
Yeah. But that's, like, really the only case
or, like,
where that
maybe
happens.
If you're, like, refining items and it's just, like... Or if it was, like, a one-button press on an item to turn it into a different item or to discard it, maybe, then maybe...
Well, I mean,
maybe hold to confirm is...
Crafting is still pretty much one click. When you go to the recipe, you click on it and it instantly does it. Like, it's just, like... The holding thing was kind of unnecessary. And actually, I remembered when I was thinking about it, not long after the game came out originally, one of the very early mods was basically get rid of the hold.
Oh, right. Like a workshop thing.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, it wasn't even workshop back then. It was just like an actual real mod.
Oh, right. I see.
But yeah, it was just like, yeah, I think you could have. But yeah, and then as I've been looking, because as I said, I've been trying to make money out of my base. Because there's definitely several easy ways you can just make money that are kind of like really easy but super boring. Like you could just, once you've learned some of the crafting recipes, you could probably quite easily just go to the Galactic Market Terminal and just buy raw materials, craft them in your inventory to the thing you've learned the recipe for, and sell for profit. And it's like, you could do that, but that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I actually want to use my base as a base for a purpose. So I was like trying to work out what plants I needed to grow to make money off of based on what crafting recipes I knew at the time. It's like, that kind of works, kind of. I'm trying to make money so I can buy a better freighter. Except I don't know what exactly happened with the freighters. It has this, as usual, slightly awkward system. So the first time you find a freighter battle happening, which is before you have a freighter, this is you get a free one. So you warp in, there's a freighter battle happening, you defend the freighter, you go on board, you talk to the captain, he's like, you can just have this one. You can just take this freighter because it's a cheapo, crappy one, I guess, because it has shit stats or low inventory space. You don't necessarily know that at the time, of course, but that's how that game works.
Sure.
So you get your free freighter. And then in the future, you can still happen across freighter battles like that again, and if you defend the freighter and then dock and then talk to the captain, he offers to sell you the freighter at like a reduced price. So based on some of those that I'd seen, I was like, okay, the prices of these freighters are up in the sort of 80 to 100 mil range, so I want to kind of get that much money, because I really need to upgrade my freighter, because I've been using the original free one that I got, and it's really got shitty inventory space, so I just want more. So I was like, okay, I'll grind up some cash, so the next time I happen across one of those freighter battles, I can just buy it, and pretty much whatever it is, it will just be an upgrade, regardless of how good it is. So I did that, I ground up the cash, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll just walk around for a bit until one of those freighter battles spawns. And then when I actually came to get the freighter, I was like, this one only costs 20 mil. I was like, I've got way too much cash now. But even that is really inconvenient, because this is another situation where the UI is fucked, where when you do the freighter battle and you talk to the captain in the office to sell you the freighter, it only shows you that the freighter that you're being offered. It doesn't show you your current freighter. And if you hit accept on that window, you get the new freighter, but everything that was in the old freighter just goes away.
Wait, what? Everything that was in the freighter?
Yeah.
Goes.
All the cargo in it. Because normally, if you're doing, say, a ship purchase, it brings up a window where it's like, here's your ship, here's the new ship, and it compares stats, and it tells you how much the price is. But in that window, you can move your stuff into the new ship's inventory. It's kind of an unnecessary system. It should just automatically do it. But it gives you this window where you can just, like...
Is it like just in case there's something where you...
Well, it's in case there's an inventory space mismatch, I guess. So you can just, like, I can sacrifice this and leave it in my old ship, but get this new one. Even though in most cases you'll be going up in inventory space, so it shouldn't actually be a problem. So in this one specific case with the freighter, in the freighter battles, it doesn't show you that. But if you just board a freighter that's not under attack and go and talk to the captain, you don't get the reduced price, but you do get the 2-paneled screen.
That seems like an oversight.
Yep. It's just another one of those little things where it's like, this is marginally inconvenient. So based on the fact that I knew that, I was like, okay, my current freighter has such shitty inventory, I can actually just take everything out of it and carry it on my person until I get a new freighter, and then that won't matter.
How odd. So you basically have to turn down the reduced price and say, I'll pay you more. And he's like, that's fine. Because now
I have a menu that I can offer.
And I'm not going to get all your stuff to sell.
Yeah. But considering how much I vastly overestimated the cost, apparently, even though I'd definitely seen numbers in the 100 mil area, I was like, oh, I guess it didn't matter anyway. So yeah, that was annoying. And there's a whole bunch of weird stuff in that game that just seems like it is broken in weird ways. Like a bunch of the refinery recipes are just there's where you can see a recipe where it's like, okay, this recipe is clearly. Wouldn't say it necessarily makes sense, but it makes sense in the context of the game, I guess. Where it's like, oh, you can combine carbon with tritium and it makes more carbon. It's called tritium duplication. And it's like, okay, that's a recipe that exists. But then if you try and combine other stuff with tritium, there's a couple of them that work, where it's like it combines with the tritium and it makes more of it. But there's a whole series of those where random things you can combine with tritium only turn into sodium. And it's like, it feels like there was meant to be a whole set of recipes where everything could combine with tritium and it would just duplicate it, because it's called tritium duplication. But a lot of them just default to sodium for no reason.
Weird. It is odd, isn't it? Just in general, about the whole. I mean, the whole thing's a bit weird, I suppose. But like the chemical wizard, oh, how did I get sodium out of this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there where it's just straight up you can just duplicate stuff. Sometimes more legitimately than others. There's a lot of recipes where it's combined stuff with oxygen to duplicate it, and that's fine because I guess oxygen is another resource. But there are definitely a couple of recipes where it's just combine this thing with another thing and basically generate infinite of it. For dihydrogen, you can you can compress it, uncompress it, and end up with more than you started with.
Huh.
So you can generate infinite dihydrogen that way.
Weird.
And for copper, copper refines into chromatic metal, but if you combine chromatic metal back into copper, it generates more copper at a ratio higher than it does to refine from the copper. So you can just generate infinite copper.
Yeah.
It's just some of these make sense, some of them don't so much. But on the plus side, the ones that like the dihydrogen duplication are just it removes the inconvenience of having to stop and mine dihydrogen because there's no other way to get it than to physically go onto a planet and shoot your laser at the dihydrogen crystals. So that's really annoying and inconvenient. So the fact that there is this convenient way to duplicate it infinitely, it's just that just removes that annoyance. It's dumb, but it's convenient. And with the patch that they put up yesterday, I guess, it sounds like they finally moved past the bug fixing or critical bug fixing phase and onto the fixing things phase.
Right.
Whereas already there's been several fixes to here's some more refinery recipes that maybe make more sense, which helpfully didn't fix the dihydrogen duplication. I was worried for a moment. I was oh no, if they fix that I'll be inconvenienced. But yeah, and then actual bug fixes, I guess. Not crash fixes at this point, actual bug fixes. Because mostly up to this point, it's just been crash fixes. And the one of the other bug fixes that was in the patch yesterday was now all those dialogues that I was talking about where the text doesn't appear, apparently most of those are fixed now.
Oh, okay, good.
Which helped because I actually had a mission where the mission objective dialogue wasn't in. So it just said mission objective, and I was great, I don't even know what I have to do.
It's angle bracket, mission objective.
Yeah, basically. I was great. I can infer what I have to do by the mission text, but I can't. It's not very specific. I need to know specifically what level of this thing I have to get. But then that got fixed, so I'm okay, good.
Now I know what I'm doing.
So yeah, that game continues to be sort of functional.
Sort of weird. At the same, yeah.
Sort of functional.
Is it kind of butt?
No, well, yeah, it's kind of butt. not that much butt. Less butt than Star Wars.
Less Star Wars episode 8.
It's a tiny butt.
Yes, it's a small butt. Apart from that, it's more or less of a list of things I haven't been playing. Still haven't started the Stardew multiplayer. Still waiting on that.
Sure. Isn't that's like out?
Yes, that is actually out now. Yeah. I also haven't played Surviving Mars because there was another big patch for that just came out, which the main of that patch is like creative mode, which, I don't really care about that.
Oh, right, what? Take away the challenge, just build a nice cool thing.
Just make cool stuff. But then the things that they have changed are actually like, to my mind, without having played it and only reading it from patch notes, sound like they've kind of made it easier in some ways. And also a couple of quality of life things that are just nice. Like, for example, being able to have your stockpiles constantly stocked. Because now you can set a minimum where you're like, I want you to keep this much of this resource in this stockpile at all times as best you can. Because that was always a problem with food. Because the individual food buildings inside the domes have like their mini stockpile, which is meant to store the food that they're about to sell. And then you put a food stockpile outside the dome where the drones put that into the building. But that food stockpile outside the dome doesn't really request food fast enough to keep up with the consumption rate inside the dome. So you're constantly getting annoyed by, like, there's always one dome somewhere in your colony where every day it pops up a message that says people are starving because the drones haven't resupplied the supply depot and the building inside the dome fast enough so that when people cycle through their food getting phase, there's no food there. It's just like, that's really annoying. Because it's like, I have so much food, it just hasn't been quite distributed quick enough to keep up with the game.
Is that like, so it's not really a distribution problem you can solve because it's all automated?
Yeah, because it's just automated.
Right, and so it's more of a priorities thing.
You could set up like a rover to just shuttle food back and forwards, but the trouble is there's no control over how much. You could say, like, rover, take food from here to here, but it just does that forever until the food at the source runs out. Right. Yeah. So that's not actually helpful either.
Because it might go too quick.
Because it just overflows the other end. But now you can apparently just fix that. You just see, like, I want this stockpile to always have 20 food in it. So and then the drones will do that continuously.
So it'll effectively prioritise the drones to always meet that demand instead of just doing.
Just in timing the inbound food. That will solve the problem. And then there's a couple of other things where, like, what I said about it seeming easier, like, well, I guess it's also kind of a quality of life thing, but they've made it so that pipe leaks and cable faults happen less frequently, but waste more resources. Because that was always annoying. You'd be constantly getting pop-up being like, pipe leak.
So it's more of a problem when it happens, but it just doesn't happen that much.
Yeah, it doesn't happen as much. And also, like, that was just an annoyance anyway, because you don't really do anything about a pipe leak. Your drones just eventually fix it. It's more of a matter of, like, making sure you have enough excess of power and oxygen so that when the pipe leak happens, it doesn't completely screw you. It's not really something you can control as such.
Fair enough, they all seem sensible.
Yeah, and there was a bunch of other stuff, so I've still got 2 achievements to get in that game, I guess. Do 2 more runs and I'll be done. Probably, maybe, unless they keep patching it, which, they're doing a pretty good job of patching it, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Added quite a lot more content. For free.
I thought it was something I missed.
Oh, yeah.
I 100%ed Yoku's Island Express.
Oh, yeah. I guess you did finish that.
Yeah. I think it's pretty great, generally. Or, like, it keeps up its, like, charm all the way through. I think where I think I was a little let down by it is it doesn't... The initial invention does wear off a bit.
Right.
Like, they don't I never really felt like they did too much more to mix things up as the game went on. You don't really gain... I ended up basically gaining better versions of the few abilities you have rather than gaining new abilities. Fairly early on in the game, you get, like, the slug vacuum to, like, where it was let you, like, suck up slugs and they then attach to your ball, but these slugs are for some reason volatile as well, so you can make them explode, and that can... You use that to destroy certain areas. It's like I did eventually discover, like, some more... eventually you get the ability, now you can hold 2 slugs, which isn't essential, but you can. And so, but those things are always timed anyway, so it's not like you held on to a slug indefinitely and made it explode when you wanted it to. It's like there were, you had to use them vaguely where you pick them up. So that wasn't super useful. And there were just things like that. Oh, no, you can swim faster and stuff like that. Like, now you actually just generally move faster in the world. It's like, oh, that one's actually really convenient. Now I can get around the map a bit easier. It never really sort of expanded too much on its core premise, which maybe that's like a good reason for a sequel. It's like, come on, guys. They sort of do set it up, as in there might be some stuff, and there is a nice extra ending when you 100% the game, which is nice. It's like there's a sort of extra end sequence, and it's like, so it's like, okay, so they recognise when you've done that, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I just had an incredibly pleasant time with that game, and it's like it's got good music, good writing, what little of it there is. It's well presented generally. Very much enjoyed my time with it. Will 100% again in maybe like 10 years' time.
Whenever Rob doesn't have a new game to play.
Exactly. Never at the moment. Good game. That's all I really wanted to say about it. It's a thumbs up from the Rob Review tent.
Rob Review tent.
Camp, I think I meant to say, but tent will do.
The tent. It's part of the Happy Salad camp.
Yeah, it's just my little section of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a tent.
Got a tent. Review tent as opposed to the rant tent. I mean, I suppose the rant quarter might be like one of the sleeping bags inside my tent, I suppose. It's quite a big sleeping bag. The rant bag.
Isn't that where the fire is? The campfire. The rant fire.
I keep it in my sleeping. I keep the fire in my sleeping bag. It's not very safe in there. In the rant bag. I just like the phrase rant bag now. That's pretty cool. Anyway, that was the thing I forgot. Carry on.
I don't think there's anything else to carry on.
You finished Pokemon Quest yet?
No, I more or less stopped playing that and Fallout while I was doing way too much No Man's Sky, I guess. I haven't been using my Switch that much again, suddenly, abruptly.
Except to play Splatoon with me every now and then.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think that was more or less it.
Cool. Well, I finished off the Champions Ballad.
How was that last boss? It was totally cool, right?
Awesome. Amazing music as well.
Yep.
That was so cool. I love fighting. Spoilers. Okay, I won't say.
Yeah.
I need to set the klaxon again for the second time this podcast.
Yeah.
More spoilers for you than anyone else.
Yeah.
I think I'm fine. I'm probably not going to play Champions Ballad, but fine.
Oh, it's not that long. It's real good. It's just nice. It was just nice to have some more shrines to do. Now I've run out again. Sad times. Yeah. No more shrines. But yeah, that last boss was awesome. And also the dungeon was really, really good, but it wasn't very big, I don't think. Like it wasn't, I was expecting it to be bigger than the Divine Beast, and I don't think it was. No, but it was good. But for some reason, I thought that it was like, there's finally a proper full dungeon in Breath of the Wild. And it's like, no, it's no bigger than any of the other Divine Beasts. It was really good though. It was nice. But it didn't take that long to get through, and it wasn't too complex, really. In fact, I think it was less complex than some of the Divine Beasts.
Well,
from before.
A couple of bits of it were tricky.
Yeah. I just remember the one, I guess the first one with the elephant where you had to like raise the trunk and splash the water in the right places. I remember that. I think that was tricky.
That was fairly simple.
You probably think that was harder than it was just because it was
probably
the first time you come across that. And
probably.
I think the elephant kind of had unnecessary granularity on its trunk position.
Yeah.
You
might be right.
Compared to the other dungeons where there's much less positions that you can move.
Because this one was just rotate one way and rotate the other way. Yeah. Which was fine. And my usual problem of running around for ages trying to find another tool to use when obviously what I should have done is use one of the powers, one of my powers that I'd forgotten about. The usual thing, and Breath of the Wild. It's like, I must need an item to do this. It's like, no, just use freaking stasis or cryonis or magnesis or something. I usually forget about one of the powers. Like I
usually cryonis.
Yeah, usually.
That's the one that you
although water is the clue for that, right?
Yeah.
To trigger that. But I think the one I forget is like the stasis. Whack the stasis is the one I forget about most. Anyway, so because I was in the water room thinking, I need cryonis clearly because there's water everywhere. But what I actually needed was stasis.
Yeah, ping that ball over the wall.
Yeah, or ping that rotor thing and drain it. Yeah. So yeah, that was good. I was just cleaning up there's tons of armors all over the place, and it's quite easy to find with the clues. It's like, oh, it's clearly just here. So just going around.
Some of those not as clear.
No,
where it's like it was in a guardhouse near Castle Town. It's like that's not very helpful.
Yeah,
it's one of these ruins in fucking Hyrule Field.
Yeah, so I'm wandering around Hyrule Field at the moment, but at least I've got the motorcycle to make that a bit easier, and the teleporting horse is pretty good. I barely used the horses at all during the main quest. In fact, I almost never used the horse. I think everywhere where like I hadn't already been, so I couldn't teleport there, I would just run.
You find more stuff along the way, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Riding past it.
Yeah, it's not even that slow if you've got a bit of stamina going.
Use those haste potions.
Yeah, haste potion.
Remember to use those haste potions.
Yeah. Or like run really fast at night with the stealth outfit and stuff like that.
Yeah. Does that stack with haste? I wonder. I never actually did it.
I think it does. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Be super fast.
Yeah.
Is that sneaking suit or whatever like a thing from the DLC then?
No, it's the ninja armor you get in
Kakariko Village. Yeah, Kakariko, or however you pronounce it. I think it's the first armor I bought in the game.
Is that bonus only from upgrading it, or is that its default bonus?
I don't remember having a run fast suit.
It's the set bonus, but it only works at night, like the speed bit.
It's the set bonus.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't buy that armor, I don't know.
I think I might have bought it but never bothered upgrading it because I did. I mean, who needs stealth?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was quite useful sometimes. It actually worked in the open world, the stealth. You could because you could do the sneak attack thing was quite powerful, really. Yeah.
It's just that the stealth system in Zelda was like, because it's not explicit, it's one of those bonuses where it's like it's hard to tell what it's doing until you really pay attention and be like, oh yeah, I'm actually much easier to sneak up next to these guys. I don't have to move as slowly or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty much crouched but at full pace or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
I would just put it on every time I thought I needed some stealth or whatever. And yeah. And of course, one of the quests in was going back into the Yiga clan hideout, but luckily it wasn't very far, which was a relief.
And same tactics apply. Stasis and shoot them in the face.
I did not fight them. Not this time, anyway. Yeah. But is that what you did? Just murder them all?
Yep. Even in master mode. Still effective.
Bloody hell. It's just because it's one hit kills you, right?
Yeah, basically.
I guess you're used to that from the start of the champion spell a bit.
More or less.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. So just a few things to mop up and then it's done.
I still haven't got around to actually beating the game.
Well, that's the last thing to do. Well, one of these collection quests is to go back into the castle, so I might just find all the bits.
I haven't done either of those, of course.
Yeah,
there's a few bits. I haven't had the original versions of those as well. Because there's new stuff in Hyrule Castle, and there's those two missions where you have to go in for the recipe and the old weapons.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I haven't, despite the fact I've done those, I don't think I've been everywhere in the castle. Like, I haven't spent time wandering around the castle, really. It's quite a dangerous place to hang around, especially with the, flying guardians everywhere.
I mean, that's really why I haven't got around to beating Ganon, because every time I've thought about it, I have this unnecessary plan that I just want to do all of Hyrule Castle in one go.
Right.
But then that's like I need
It's
to play
huge.
this for like 2 hours.
Yeah, it's pretty big. That's like a
Not
dungeon.
just jump in and out in that case.
Except it's got no puzzles.
But there's no reason for that, because I totally could just jump in and out. It's not like you can't save in Hyrule Castle or anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a shrine in the castle, isn't there, at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's Zelda, and I think that's the Saladcast.
Yep.
Until next time. Any videos coming up?
More Gungeon.
Enter the Gungeon with Rob and Zach.
Zach and I got a little bit into it, and so we've done some more runs.
And there may well be more.
Yeah.
It's ideally interspersed between other videos. The Gungeon has now sort of become our fallback video.
Yeah, except that's all we've got at the moment.
Get some more in the tank, guys. And viewers and listeners. Listeners to this podcast can be viewers of our YouTube channel, which now has some Into the Gungeon videos. So check those out.
They can be lures.
And you can
listeners.
convert back into listeners in 2 weeks' time for another Saladcast.
That you can.
Bye.
Like going to Mexico.
Bye.
Bye.